My yard is so full with some piles of dog poop. Hey everybody, happy Friday. I realized today that I probably spend about 10% of my waking hours scooping someone's poop. So lots of dogs means lots of poop, but we also have Cabo and Delilah. They make bigger poop, and you definitely have to stay on top of that, or there's just overwhelming loads of work to do. So we've got the puppy here. I'm sure that's part of why it feels like there's more poop than usual. But I scoop when I get up in the mornings. The dogs go out late at night, so I don't go scoop late at night if they're doing that business in the dark. And then Richard usually lets them out around 5 or 5:30 in the morning when he gets up. And again, we don't scoop right then. So that just means there are all kinds of little gifts waiting for me around the yard when I wake up to get the day started. So I think I've already scooped, a half a dozen piles of poop twice today. And there's 4 dogs here, our 3 dogs and the little Posey foster dog. So we're going to start off. I'm going to get my channel stats out of the way. And then my friend JC, if you didn't see that, I'm going to take myself off the screen so you guys can see the backdrop I made. And then I'll explain here in just a bit what all of those emblems are on the screen. I will tell you that the background of that background is just a Tucson, Arizona image, like downtown Tucson. But then I've got JC backstage, so maybe he'll be able to see this too. And then we can talk about some of the elements that you see on the screen. So I'm going to take myself off for just a minute. Okay, did you memorize everything in that picture? So along with learning about his adventures as a police officer and a death investigator, we'll talk about our connection, how we know each other. And he's an animal lover just like me. So I'm sure we'll have some animal stories that we can throw into the mix as well. Hello to Jerry and Susan at Butler Family Farm. Hello, Dark Lord Minute. Great to have you guys here. Let me put up my little banner just so you know what we're talking about today. And I will now remember to say here at the beginning of the show, thank you to those who are watching live, and thank you to those who will be part of the rewatch crew who check out the stream after it ends today. Again, let's pull up my spreadsheet so we can go over some channel stats. And we'll get that out of the way. Oh, wait, before I do that, I did want to say that if I have not already personally invited you to check out the Storytime with Cat videos that are going up on the channel, I'm making my way through The Trumpet of the Swan, written by E.B. White. He is the author of Charlotte's Web. So if you're not familiar with The Trumpet of the Swan, I imagine you are familiar with the story of Charlotte's Web. Same author, and this is just as beautifully written, just as easy to imagine, even if there aren't images. It's more of an audio book, that, as you'll see if you go to check out the videos. This is my copy. As you can see, my book jacket has been pretty loved on over the years. The inside is great, so there's no damage to the pages. But this is my Trumpet of the Swan. That I read this to my kids when they were little. I've read it multiple times in my life. It's a precious story, sweet little characters, and you can just play it while you're doing something else, folding laundry or washing dishes. So it's not something you have to watch. We are through chapter 13 of 21 right now in the book. Each video is about 4 chapters. There's been one video already that was 4 chapters so that I could get this down to 4 or 5 videos. And partly that's because my voice can only take about that much. So what you hear in the video is, the best parts of recording, because every now and then I mess something up and then I have to go back and re-record it and then edit all the pieces together. And it just takes a toll on my voice after a while. So check that out for me. It's a fun way to, again, pass some time. You can help me with watch hours. I'm always going to need watch hours. And it doesn't require that you be sitting right in front of the computer, because it's just to listen to. You don't have to watch it. I will have my second reaction video going up tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. So join me for that. I have it set as a premiere, so we'll have live chat happening while that's on. It is my reaction to police pursuit videos on YouTube. It's mind-boggling. It's exhilarating, it's terrifying, it's interesting, and it's impressive to see what these officers can do during and after chasing crazy people in cars on the road. So be there. Join me tomorrow at 7. I'm really getting close to 2,500 subscribers, y'all. Just saying. So if you are watching today's video and you haven't already helped me grow my little YouTube family by subscribing, I invite you to do that. Thank you for doing that. Thank you to those who have already done that. And now let's move on, as I said I was going to do, and we're going to do our channel stats for channel members and previous guests on the show. Starting, as always, with our friends Nina and Boyce. These are Texas neighbors of ours. They are at 903 subscribers today. Ordered Steps, holding on to that 1,320 something. My friend Akashi Chris at Mind Fork has officially crossed the 500 subscribers mark. She's at 506 today. Joe Hupp in Australia is at 343 today. Let me get my cursor back where I want it. Jesse and Lisa at Lazy Days Ahead with Jesse and Lisa, more Texas neighbors of ours, are at 1,650 something. Jerry and Susan at Butler Family Farm. Jerry is in the chat today. They are at 2,000 something, 2,005. Awesome news. Gosh, y'all, their channel is doing so well, and it's such a wonderful channel. I have a link in the description for this live stream of the video that Jerry and Susan posted on their channel of their visit to Texas for Pinecone Fest, because they stopped here at RichKatRanch, paid me a visit. Jerry spent way too much time, bless his heart though, looking at my well, trying to figure out why the well here doesn't work. And we discovered that it doesn't work because there's no power hooked up to it. There's power available to it, it looks like, but at some point someone either disconnected it or it never got set up. And we were told when we found the property, someone came to look at the well and they told us we needed a new pump, and they quoted us this ridiculous price that we just haven't had the funds to do that. And we have city water, so it's not as if we don't have water. So Jerry gave me some pointers. I haven't tried them yet. To get some power work run out to it, just to see if the pump does or doesn't work. Based on what that turns up, we'll know what the next steps might be. So public thank you to Jerry for taking a look at my well. He would do anything for anyone. Definitely a shirt off of his own back kind of a guy. You guys absolutely need to check out his channel. There's a great opportunity to learn some things and just spend some time with some wonderful people and their wonderful animals and property. My friend David Hunt is at 665 today. My friend Lee at First Floor Audio, he's in the UK. He is at 1,250 something subscribers today. If you're new here, when I say 1,250 something or 2,000 something, it's because I can only see, when I go to their channels, I only see the first 3 digits. So when I go to Lee's channel, I see 1.25. It could be 1,259 for all I know. I just know it's between 50 and 60. My friend Adam Sky, also in the UK, is at 363 today. My friend Kevin at All Bugs Go to Kevin is at 426. Our Texas neighbors and friends Jeff and Lorena at Back to Country are at 815. My friend Amanda at Bare Bones Living is at 894. My friend Brian at Bearded Eagle is at 1,350 something. My friend Ashley at CNC Farm is at 2,270 something. My friend Tiffany in Canada at Canadian Family Life is at 2,000 something. So she's trying to keep up with Jerry and Susan. My friend Heather at Come Hither with Heather in Australia is at 1,080 something subscribers today. My friend Danielle at Danny Days Ahead is also at 1,080 something subscribers today. My friend Dawn Ray B is up to 572. Brittany and Big K, my friends at Flannel Hill Farm, are at 308 still today. My FOBBV Cam, Friends of Big Bear Valley, the home of Jackie and Shadow, my second all-time favorite eagle nest, and on the heart nest lists. I have 3 heart nests, and they were guests on the show back on the 15th of September. Check that out. They are holding on to their 216,000 something subscribers. My friends Jen and Steve at Good Times Homestead with Jen and Steve are at 1,060 something subscribers. My friend John at Home Bartending with John is at 405 subscribers today. My friend Kirsten Nelson, horse guru, trainer, anything you need to know if you have equines, particularly horses, She can teach it. I still owe her such a debt of gratitude for having a video on YouTube that showed me how to put medicine in a horse's eye, because when Nakona had that eye problem, I didn't have a whole lot of time to learn how to do that. Now he's a good horse again, and we've tended to him for a long time for these clients. So he's comfortable with me. I'm comfortable with him. He's not easily spooked. He's not as big as Cabo, but I mean, horses in general are big, and he's definitely bigger and taller than I am. But he just handled it beautifully. If you missed me sharing about that, initially the first 4 or 5 days that I was putting medicine in his eye, I would put his halter on, I would put a lead rope on him, and I would step on the lead rope. I'd get his head at the height I needed it, and then I would step on the lead rope to keep his head at that level, and then I would reach around and use the method that Kirsten showed to put the drops in his eyes. But after about that 4th or 5th day, I didn't have to step on the lead rope. There were a couple of gradual little steps. And by the last 3 or 4 days, because we were tending to them for 2 weeks this past time, didn't even have to halter him. I would just call him to me. He would stand in front of me. I would reach over, put the drops in his eyes, and then he'd go on about his business. So just again, a testament to the knowledge and skill and gifts that Kirsten has. And kudos to her for being willing to share that knowledge and on her channel. But check her out. My friend Peter Tragos at Lawyer You Know is at 281,000 something subscribers today. My friend Katie at Mayfield Ranch is at 1,290 something. Paul at Millionaire Paul, the Millionaire Challenge in the UK is at 324 today. My friend Tammy at Mountain Grandma is at 949. My friend Tiffany at Mudda Mascara Homestead is at 572. My friend Nick at Multi Hunter 24/7, some more Texas neighbors of ours, is at 1,090 something. My friend Ginger at Not For Nothing Homestead is at 1,080 something. My friends Devin and Ryan, Texas neighbors of ours at Our New Land, are at 5,310. 10 something, between 10 and 20. My friend Nancy at Our Treasured Home is at 1,150 something today. My friend Marin at Palma Pioneer Pantry is at 296. My friend Shane, also in Canada, at Paralife TV, your everyday wheelchair ninja, is at 2,160 something today. My friend John Pedroza at Pedroza Travel is at 1,180. Give me a second here. See, when I talk a lot, it just takes a toll on my throat. My friend Vicki Lund at Psychology Noir with Dr. Lund is holding on to her 1,030 something subscribers. Wes and Jess at Rich New Design are at 628. Ronnie and Brittany at Ronnie and Brittany RB Story, friends of ours in California, are at 811. My friend David and Texas neighbor at Safe and Sound Texas Audio Excursion has crossed the 3,200 subscriber mark. My friend Shannon at Shanster Travels is at 1,850 something. Check out what's happened with Sparrow Spalding in the last week. So last week she was at 1,500, between 10 and 20. This week she's at 2,380 something. You guys go check out her channel. A lot of great information there. My friends Kenny and Debbie at The Adventures of Kenny and Debbie are at 814 today. My friend Angela at The Inquisitive Farm Wife is at 2,180. My friend Dino at The Late Late Horror Show up to 120 something thousand today. My friend Tom Salta, JC will know Tom Salta. This is another geezer gamer friend of ours, is at 3,010 something, between 10 and 20. My friends John and Sarah at Two Doves, Bees and Gardens are holding on to their 1,770 something subscribers. The Vineyard Chicks are at 4,720 something. My friend Ralph at Webb's Web is at 1,050 something. And my friend Robin at What the Flock is at 592. And then notice I've got your name here. So let me put up my little reminder that if you are a content creator, you'd like to be interviewed on the show to get your name out there and maybe meet some new potential viewers and subscribers, I would love to get you scheduled so that we can visit and you can tell us about yourself and your channel. So just send me an email if that's something that you're interested in doing. I'm always looking to introduce new folks to new folks. So, or if you know of someone, so maybe you watch a channel that I might not know about, send me an email and say, hey, check out this channel. This is my friend so-and-so, or they have great content about whatever. And I'll look into that too and see if I can get a hold of them. Or if you know them and can contact them, feel free to pass along my email address so they can reach out to me directly. So that's what that is. Wanted to tell you about some fun collaborations that are coming up for me this holiday season. The first of which is I'm going to participate in Croctober again this year. I forgot to add that. I'll put the link for my last year's submission to Croctober in the description for the video once the video has finished. And you can check that out. I'll also include last year's playlist just so you can see all of the amazing crockpot recipes that were shared during that event. And then I'll share the playlist for this year's Croctober. My submission will go up on the 31st of October. So be watching for that. I'll round that out. And then typically there is a live stream after the event ends where there's drawings for prizes. And typically you get entered into the drawings by watching and liking each of the videos and commenting. It does need to be a unique comment, so you can't just copy and paste great video, thanks for sharing, or something. That's nice to say, but if that's all you're putting in all the comments, it could disqualify you from being in the drawing for prizes. Let me make sure I'm not missing anyone. Hello, Bud Files. Thanks for being here today. Hey, Pete at Scratch and Pete. Thanks for being here today. Oh, let me take that banner off. So that's the first collaboration I'm going to do. And then this will be my first year to participate in Noodle November. I'm not sure yet what I'm going to prepare. I do know what I'm going to do for Croctober, but I don't know for sure yet what I'm going to do for Noodle November. I probably will not make my own pasta. That's an option for the people that participate, only because I've never made my own pasta, and I don't want my first attempt to be when I'm making a video for public consumption. So I'll just have to think over my recipes that have pasta in them and decide what I want to share for that collaboration. And then to round out the year, I think it's on the 10th of December. That's my day to upload a cookie collaboration video. I can't remember what Ashley is calling it. This is Ashley from CNC Farm that's doing the cookie collab this year. There's usually a lot of cookie collabs on YouTube, but this will be the first time I've participated in one. I'm going to make some cookies that harken back to my childhood and my Latina roots. One of those recipes that I still remember how my grandmother used to say to me and my sister, you girls need to learn how to do this. One day you're going to need to learn how to do this, or you're going to wish that you had learned how to do this. But we were little and all we wanted to do was be outside barefoot, climbing trees and stuff. So we didn't have time to be sitting in the kitchen watching how to make tamales or cookies, or I won't say what kind of cookies I'm going to make because I don't want anyone to steal my idea, because Ashley's really trying to make sure that there are no duplicates. And that's part of why I picked this particular cookie, because I'm hoping no one else is going to make them. But check those out. So be watching for those. Obviously, I'll keep you guys posted on my community tab about my submissions and when those go live, so to speak, for you to see. Again, if you're just getting here, I have my second in what I hope will be a series of reaction videos that'll go up on the channel tomorrow evening at 7. It's my reaction to police pursuit videos on YouTube. It's some wild and crazy stuff out there, y'all. It's wild and crazy stuff out there. Sum it up. So, and I say this in the video, but from the videos I've watched, men are dangerous, but women are crazy. So you blend all of that together, and what do you suppose you get? So it's going to be a good time, high speed, heart pounding stuff. And I hope you'll join me with it, because I think it's going to be fun. It's a longer premiere than I've ever done before. I think this comes in at just under an hour and a half. So come and go. It's like a come and go shower. You don't have to sit through the whole thing, but I'd love for you to pop in and say hello and check it out with me. Anything else I need to tell you? I don't know that there's anything else I need to tell you. We still have our little foster puppy Posey. Tomorrow is the monthly adoption event that Good Shepherd holds. The only times we haven't held events were weather related. So there were a couple of summer events this year that got canceled just due to the heat. Even in the mornings, it was so stinking hot here that it just wasn't safe. And particularly for the dogs, because they get out and they want to run and play. And the property where we hold the adoption events is lots of acreage, so the dogs can just go wild and run, and they don't know when to say when. So aside from it being dangerous for the humans because it's so hot, not a good idea to tempt fate and have these poor dogs out just not able to control themselves necessarily because they have so much space and other dogs to play with. So this will be Posey's first adoption event. If she doesn't get adopted tomorrow, and there are not a lot of applications coming in, the shelters are overrun, shelters are over capacity. That's why we have her, because she was pulled from the shelter with two of her little siblings when they were about 8 weeks old. She spent the first month with another foster family, and then the mom's work schedule changes. She's a nurse, and she did not feel right about having to leave Posey in a crate all day while she was gone. So it was then a great time for us to bring her into our home since I'm here all the time. She's doing wonderfully. She's really taking cues from the adult dogs here. She's met a great long string of boarders, and we had a meet and greet for a new boarder that will stay with us the weekend of the 28th this month. So she came out for a meet and greet on Sunday this past weekend. Posey met her. There are no strangers. I worry more that she's going to like spook or freak out other dogs because she's just so friendly and she doesn't know to be cautious. But it went great. And, as long as we've got her on a leash and she's monitored, then everything is great. And she and that dog got along great too. She loves Gucci because Gucci is a ball of energy who never stops moving unless she's eating or sleeping. And that's like puppy. That's like puppy heaven. So, but when Gucci's not here, like right now, our dogs are just all laying down. They know the routine now until Boone hears a motorcycle and then he'll freak out. I don't know what it is about motorcycles, y'all. He hates motorcycles. Like he can be sound asleep and hear in the distance the sound of a motorcycle coming, and he's running at the windows and barking and carrying on like somebody's about to be mauled. But because they're all laying down and just chilling right now, she's laying down and just chilling. I can't get the camera turned over that way. So she's doing great. She's wonderfully crate trained already. We don't crate our dogs, but for the puppies, we do try to get them crate trained while they're young because it's a lot easier to undo the crate training. So if she gets adopted into a family and they want to leave her out or let her sleep in the bed or whatever, then they can do that. That's easier to do than to have her accustomed to roaming and being loose, and then as she gets older trying to get her crate trained. At least for German Shepherd dogs, I don't know that they're as suited for that kind of confinement as maybe some other dogs. They really need to feel like they have opportunity and access to monitor their property and protect their people. And so it doesn't typically go real well with them as adults. But if they're trained from puppyhood, then that's just part of their conditioning and they don't get stressed out about it. If that's something that continues into their adult life, all the dogs here are happy and well. All the animals are happy and well. Again, a lot of poop, man. If you missed my opening number, you got to run it back to the beginning at some point. I opened the show with a little homage to The Sound of Music, one of my favorite holiday movies. Just thinking about all the poop I scoop around here. Our time tending to the new clients. I'll have a video going up about that, I think on Tuesday next week. We took on some new clients, our little family business, 2 donkeys, 2 goats, 3 chickens, and 2 dogs. It was heaven on earth every day to go over. And in the beginning, they were a little wary of me. They didn't know me, and I wasn't as smooth with the routine, getting everyone fed as I became over the course of the week that I tended to them. But after the first few days, then it was obvious they knew who I was. They were comfortable with me. They knew what routine I was going to do, even if it's slightly different from what their parents do for them. The parents were in Alaska, and it's, I think, probably the first time, if I remember right, aside from just being gone for like a day trip or maybe overnight, it's the first time that they've been able to get away just because they have a lot of animals, which is why we're here all the time. So that was a treat for me. And now again, without further ado, let me make sure I'm looking at the camera now. He's going to get back in his car. No tongues out, no picking your nose, No eyes closed. Okay, he's clothed. He is wearing clothes. I told him it didn't matter what he was wearing, but I did need him to wear clothes because we're a family-friendly show. He's retired now. He is a retired police officer and death investigator. So he doesn't have as many constraints as Kevin had last week as far as talking about, real time stuff that's happening or that he's dealing with. So I'm hoping that we're going to get some interesting stories. I don't know a lot about Tucson, and I haven't spent a lot of time in Arizona. I've flown through. I've had a stop in Phoenix a couple of times on my way to and or from California when I went out to visit Gerald when he was in boot camp and then serving at Camp Pendleton out there while he was in the Marine Corps. And it was very uneventful. So I don't know, but Tucson's a big enough city, and I would put money on it that JC's probably seen some things that none of us are ever going to see. So we'll pick his brain about that. As always, if you have questions for him as the interview is going on and the visit is happening, put your questions in the comments, and we'll see how much more information we can get out of him than I might be able to get with the things that I already know I want to talk to him about. And here you come. You're coming up, JC. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. So it looks
I'm
like you have
shocked because I'm boring, but
oh no, we'll see. We're gonna take care of that. So it looks like you have beautiful weather going on there too.
It's awesome. I'm in Jonesboro, Arkansas now. So
Okay.
I fled Tucson, and it is absolutely gorgeous here. It's in the mid to upper 70s. So
okay, yeah, it's beautiful here today. I think we're at like 84. Supposed to hit about 90, that's fine with me. That's still comfortable in my book. When we start getting hotter than that, it starts to get a little less fun. But we've had multiple seasons this week. So we've had like some early summer and some late fall already just in the last 3 or 4 days. Because I woke up one morning and it was 41 degrees, which really felt cool after the stifling hot summer that we had. And then the very next day, I think it got up to like 82. So now we're looking at maybe 90 degrees today. So hopefully that adoption event tomorrow will be comfortable. So tell me, okay, so you've already told us you're in Jonesboro.
Yes.
Tell me now, family. I know you've got a nice big batch of kids.
Oh, yeah, great. That's why I'm still working. I'm at work today. I will work until I drop. I have 5 kids and a wonderful wife, and I have a German Shepherd and a Boston Terrier and 11 chickens and a Juliana pig.
So, and I think, so you guys, what do you remember what year that was you came here? 2014?
Oh, gosh.
Did we have all 3 of our dogs already?
You had about 6 of them.
Oh, well, we probably had some fosters and boarders and stuff, but I think you were here after we had adopted all of our family dogs, and you brought Nero. Didn't you have Nero with you on that trip? Yes. So they had their little German Shepherd puppy with them on that trip. So he's been to RichKatRanch, y'all, met the animals here. That's before we had ducks and geese, but he met Cabo and our horse Liberty at the time. And then our 2 boys, Bandit and Cooper, those were the German Shepherd boys that crossed over the Rainbow Bridge late 2021 and early 2022, but they would have been in the family at the time. So Serena would be probably the only one we have now that we would have had back then. She's the old crotchety big sister here. So, and animal wise, before we get into some of the meaty police stuff, tortoises. I told you when we talked that I wanted to talk about tortoises because you guys used to raise tortoises, right?
Yes. So sulcata tortoises, which are the third, I think they're the 3rd largest tortoise in the world. They can get up to 300 pounds easy. They're huge. I had one that was about 120 pounds.
Oh my gosh. A turtle.
So, yeah.
A tortoise. Yeah.
Tortoise. But they're a handful. They'll dig and push things. They're bulldozers. So they go around your yard and they rearrange everything.
Oh.
And then they dig big burrows in your yard. So. But we've had those. We had an alligator when I was a kid. We've had monkeys, snakes, name it, we probably had it. Saltwater
Okay.
tanks, freshwater tanks, and both my wife and I are enablers. So, and unfortunately, when you're a cop and you're out driving around 10 hours a day, you run into a lot of loose animals, strays, on calls where somebody would go into the hospital, they have no family. Yes, we have a critter sat for people. We're all about critters. So when my wife calls and says, guess what I found walking along the road, I know we're going to have a new guest.
A new non-skin family member, yeah.
Yeah.
So we didn't have our big, well, she wouldn't have been big then anyway, but we didn't have our red-eared slider turtle when you guys were here because we didn't get her until 2017. I say get her. I found her in the duck yard when she was about silver dollar size, and now she's coming up on a foot long now. So she's a big girl.
I had 3 and finally had to get rid of them. I shouldn't say get rid of, rehome or anyway, we rehomed them. And 3 months later, we still had baby red-eared sliders popping up.
Oh.
So I had a little fish pond. So every morning I'd come out and look in the fish pond, and there were a couple of babies swimming around in there. So we rehomed all of them too. They are prolific. They're as bad as rabbits. So
yeah, well, she's on her own, so she doesn't have anyone to help her with furthering her species. Right. But they can live a long time, so she may get put in the will at some point for someone to inherit.
That's funny. When I got my sulcatas, I had 3 of them. And when I got them, they said, you need to put them in the will because they will outlive you and probably your kids too. So it's pretty amazing. Yeah.
That and snakes. I know there can be some snakes that can live a long time too. We don't have one of those yet. Richard won't say yes to that. I tell people the only
do have one.
Well, I mean, we've got rat snakes and water snakes that come on the property pretty frequently. So I get to handle them and interact with them from time to time, but not one that lives in the house with us. He's not for that. But I've told people, I think the only kind of creatures I don't have that I would love to have is a snake, like a pet snake, and a tarantula. I would love to have a pet tarantula, but
never had one. We had them running all around the yard. Tucson is a lot of people think it's very dead and not a lot. There's more animals per square foot there than anywhere else I've been.
Wow.
I look over a rock and there's stuff there, and it's an interesting place.
Yep. So moving on from animals, tell us. Oh, go ahead. Tell us how you decided, or when you decided, or both, to go into law enforcement. How does that work for people?
Okay. So I was at the University of Arizona. I was in my 3rd year of mechanical engineering. And that was going to be my life. Everything. I didn't particularly care for cops because I had more speeding tickets and registration tickets. And in fact, when I applied, that was the only sticking point they had with me. They were worried about that. And they finally had approval because I hadn't had a traffic violation in a certain amount of time. So they took me, but they didn't take note of that. Anyway, I wasn't too fond of cops at the time, and I got to go on a ride-along. I was asked if I wanted to go a ride-along with a police officer, and I thought, yeah, okay, I'll do it. Well, went out that night, and it was everywhere we drove, we had lights and sirens. We were going through intersections and going airborne. It was like Dukes of Hazzard. And I was like, and we were going to legitimate calls. These were, shots fired or a fight in progress or whatever. And it was just pure adrenaline the entire night. And we arrested a couple of guys, and I was sitting in the back. There was no room in the front, so I was sitting in the back where the prisoners are. So when we arrested people, I got to sit with them.
Oh.
So I'm this college kid with no life experience, and I'm sitting next to a felon here.
Yeah.
And so we start talking, and the first felon we picked up, turned out I knew the guy.
Oh my goodness.
He lived in my neighborhood, so it was interesting. Anyway, short story is, at the end of the night, I could not believe they paid people to do that. And the guy I did a ride along with, he said, yeah, they pay for all your gas. They give you a car and a gun and poof. And I thought, I dropped out of school about 3 months later. I went through the application process. They had a hiring freeze. And when they opened the application process, there were 3,000 people, I think, applied. And I got lucky and got in. And it's a roller coaster. It's been, I was there for 24 years. I was on the streets the entire time. I was either as a supervisor or whatever I was doing, I was working the streets. I never did detective work or anything like that. But I had some really cool assignments. I had stuff that I got to do and got paid to do that I had never dreamed that somebody would pay me to do. I got to blow up doors. I was on the bicycle unit for 5 years, so I got to be a professional cyclist. I used to tell people I was a fully sponsored professional cyclist. But I got to do that bicycle unit for 5 years in downtown Tucson. Very interesting for me. And then I did SWAT for 14 years. And I got to do just crazy stuff. I got to do dignitary protection, so I got to meet a lot of famous people. Remind me to tell you the mullet story.
Okay.
And I got to blow stuff up and break doors and crash windows and all kinds of cool stuff. I got all the best equipment. I had a ton of stuff. But the drawback with that was I was on call 24/7, 7 days a week. So I can't tell you how many holidays I missed because all the family fights happen around Christmas and Thanksgiving. And so I would get pulled out of a movie theater. I'd be there with my family, and in the middle of the movie, the pager would go off, and you don't have a choice because somebody's life is in the balance, maybe.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So you get up and run. And I for 14 years, I carried 120 pounds of my gear around, and everywhere I went, and my pager was on me 24/7.
Yeah.
So that I don't miss that kind of stuff. But
right.
the calls I got to go on, the people I got to meet, it was awesome.
So
now, I retired after 24 years, and then I transferred over to the medical examiner's office, and I was a death investigator there. And basically what that entails is we had 7 pathologists, forensic pathologists that were on staff, and they would never leave the building. They would stay in and do the autopsies and write the reports and do the drug testing and all that. But as an investigator, I would go out in the field. So when there was a homicide or an accident or an unknown death or whatever happened, then I would go to the scene and I would take photographs. I would talk to law enforcement. I would talk to witnesses, family, get all the medical history, try to get the entire picture of what happened. And then I would write a report, put the photographs in, list the drugs that were involved, whatever. And then the next day when the pathologists would come in, then they could open my report and they knew what case they were working on. They had the details. So that was probably by far the most interesting job I had, was doing that.
Do you have a handful of like really wild stories related to that? Like what's the wildest? You went out and did your investigation and you learned what?
Oh my God. I could talk to you for probably 3 weeks straight and tell you stories. I am great at parties. No one ever invited me to parties until I had this. Okay, so you say crazy. Narrow it down for me. Do you want funny? Do you want sad? Do you want
I just want that when you I want mind blowing. When you did your investigation, even with the facts in front of you, you could not believe what you learned. Like that. I mean, it could be funny too. I shouldn't narrow it down. I'm thinking it would just be like bizarre.
I'm going to try to keep this as family friendly as I can. The really fun ones are not
Can't
family
really share. Okay.
Yeah, not family friendly, and they involve a lot of unchristian words. So yeah, I'll spare you that.
Okay.
But Probably, and this is morbid, but probably the suicides were the most intriguing to me.
Okay.
The facts leading up to it, the circumstances, and I have the ways people would do it. I never knew there were so many ways to check out
Oh, wow. Wow.
that what I saw. But let me ask you, narrow it down a little more. Like, give me a job title or an occupation or something like that. And I'll tell you a story.
Yeah,
It got so bad. Oh, go ahead.
Let's say maybe it was like a local celebrity, radio personality, or somebody from the news, anything like that.
You know, that's funny. The only famous person I remember, we had a guy, a rapper, and he's one of the newer rappers with the tattoos all over his face. And I'm not a big fan, so I don't remember the kid's name, but he overdosed in Tucson. He was found, I think he was found in a hotel room. I didn't go on the call, but that's the only really celebrity death I can think of. Yeah, I'm sorry. John Dillinger was taken into custody in Tucson. Not under my watch.
Okay. Wow.
So I was a cop from 1990 till 2014-ish, somewhere in there. So about 24 years. And when I was in the academy in 1990, and I don't know how old the audience here is, but
they're like my age. They're between your age and my age for the most part.
Okay, all right. So they'll understand what we're talking about in our references. So
Yeah.
Rodney King happened when I was in the academy.
Okay.
And if you remember what the public perception was of cops at that time, it changed overnight. As soon as Rodney King happened, we became Nazis. And so my entire career, from the day I got out of the academy till the day I retired, was under the auspice or under the shadow of Rodney King.
Wow.
And then the subsequent, bad stories that you hear.
Yeah.
And I came from, let me just, a footnote to this. I came from a department of roughly 1,000 officers. The racial mix in Tucson is 40% Hispanic, 40% white, and roughly 20% Black or Asian, right?
Okay.
So, and that was reflected in the department. And, you hear about the racism happening in wherever, but Tucson was the best place to work for me. It was everybody got along, the racial aspect was not present in Tucson. You couldn't afford it. Because and there were a few guys that came in the department, but immediately they were recognized and they were shoved out. So I hear the stories, and I hear stories like I was talking to a Chicago cop, and he was telling
it's not that
stories.
way up there. Yeah.
In different jurisdictions, it's not that way. So, but I can give you my perspective on what I saw. So, getting back to stories, you want to hear? I was in the biggest bong, I think, in the world. Inside of it, that's an interesting story. Unintentionally, okay? Unintentionally. Today, probably intentionally, but unintentionally at that time.
I can't say I've ever met anyone else that could say that.
Right, and I'm sorry, I'm scattered. I jump around here, so it's my ADD.
That's okay.
But, okay, let me get back on the most interesting. So there's 4 or 5 suicides or deaths that just baffled me. The one that comes to mind right now, there was a guy, when I was in the death investigator business, we were based in Tucson, but we covered half the state.
Yeah.
So from Tucson is about an hour and a half from Mexico, from the Mexico border. So we're in the southern part of the state, and we covered all the way up to the Four Corners, which is in the very northeast.
Oh, wow. Okay, right.
But we didn't drive there. So if it was an out-of-county case, they would call in the report and then ship the body down to us. I would write the report and do the autopsy, and we'd ship them back to wherever they came from.
Okay.
But we got one out of Chandler. I think it was Chandler, which is near Phoenix. And this guy, for whatever reason, he decided to check out. Well, first of all, there was a family sitting in a McDonald's, and this was late at night, and they saw a red truck go through the parking lot, vacant parking lot, and crash into a building, a business. And so they run out to check on the guy, and they run up, and now I'll tell you the precursor to this. This guy decided to take the yellow nylon camping cord you get at Ace or a hardware store. He tied it off to a light pole with the big concrete bases on it. And then he put it through the window of his truck. He brought it in, tied a slip knot, put it over his head, and then hit the accelerator.
Like pulling out a tooth. Like that concept when you're a kid, tying the string around your tooth and shutting the door.
It pulled every one of those teeth out. So, and again, I'm trying not to get morbid here, but so if I get a little in the sketchy area, let me know, and I'll try to.
If you hear me go, whoa, then you'll know. Yeah.
So the family runs up to the truck, and there's a guy sitting there with no head, basically.
Yeah.
And so, and I thought about it, and I thought, what an interesting way to go, and where would you think of this?
That idea,
And so we did some research, and there were actually 3 other cases like this. And I think there was one in England and one in California and the one we had. And it turned out, somebody said, oh, there was an American Horror Story. I think that was the show. But there was some show where they had somebody in the back of a car, and they put a chain around their neck and drove away. Well, we figured out that's probably where they got the idea.
Oh, no.
So, and then, so that was a weird case.
Wow.
The reasons leading up to some of these situations had a couple that was arguing in their apartment, and they were arguing over toilet paper. And it turned out that these were young kids, but the boyfriend he was out of toilet paper. So he found out that the girlfriend had been hoarding the toilet paper under the sink. Okay, so the fight starts, and I don't know why, but it got bad enough that he stepped outside, put a gun to his head right in front of her, and shot himself.
No.
Yeah, over toilet paper.
No.
But stuff like that. So it's really interesting. You hear about a homicide or whatever, but you never really hear about what leads up to it. And I had a couple of brothers that got into an argument over chicken husbandry, of all things. So they got into an argument over how to raise chickens. One pulled out a knife and stuck it in his brother and killed him right there.
Oh my goodness.
So, but that kind of stuff you don't hear about, you don't read about in the paper, you don't hear it on the news, and unless you know, or somebody that was there or saw it, you would never know this stuff.
Right.
And it happens all the time.
Oh my gosh. Speaking of chickens though, any other weird, like animal related, like a mountain lion attack or
yes. Okay. So
you said there's so many animals in Arizona.
The university in Arizona, the mascot is the wildcat. Well, there were wildcats in Arizona. We also had mountain lions and stuff. Tucson is surrounded on all 4 sides by mountain ranges, so it's kind of like a bowl. And the wild animals come into Tucson. Well, we would get calls, wildcat calls, a lot, and they're basically large. They're kitty cats, but they're 40 pounds bigger. So we would get those calls, and you would think, oh, well, the fire department takes care of that. No, they don't. The fire department does not come get kitties out of trees or any of that stuff. It's the cops. And the reason is they don't want to take, 10 guys on a ladder truck to go save a kitten when they can send a stupid cop.
There's a guy already in the area.
So I did a lot of rescues. Let's see, what else did we have? Snake calls. We would get the snake calls where somebody would come out and find one in their garage. We'd come out and get them.
Any deaths though? Did you investigate any deaths that then ended up being because someone, I don't know, was bitten by a poisonous animal or venomous animal or mauled by a bear? Or do you remember anything like that?
You know what? I don't think I had a lot of. Well, probably shouldn't. I don't know if I can say this on. Okay, so when somebody dies and they're alone, and they don't have family or they don't have somebody to check on them, and 2 weeks later somebody finds them, a lot of times it's an older person, they're retired, and they have little dogs, right? Well, little dogs get hungry.
They'll take care of, they'll finish off.
So
Yeah.
stop me if I go too far. But it's really unnerving to walk into a house. And I did a lot as a cop. I would do check welfares. Somebody would call in from out of state and they say, "Hey, my grandma's not answering the phone. Haven't talked to her in a while." So the cops go out and do a check welfare. And you walk into a house and you see that grandma's there, but her face isn't.
Oh.
And the
And
little
there's
dog
the
runs
little Lhasa
over.
Apsos. Yeah.
There's a Lhasa Apso that wants to
Yeah.
lick your face off.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had a lot of that kind of stuff, but
Oh,
I can't
wow.
say that I had any animals that caused the death.
Like attack someone and kill. Okay.
Well, not attack, but I would have stuff where somebody would run out into the highway to help a stray dog or something, and they would get run over. Right?
Yeah.
I had those.
Oh, no.
I had a lot. Unfortunately, I did have the animal cruelty calls. We would have those. A lot of pit bulls in Arizona. A lot of dog fighting, stuff like that. Not so much dog fighting anymore, but the pit bulls were a status symbol.
Yeah.
So, and the meaner they were, the meaner you were, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's. I also worked at animal control for 6 months. I forgot to tell you that.
Uh-huh.
So I was an animal control officer, and that was one of the most satisfying and one of the most depressing jobs I had.
I bet. Can you see on your screen, can you see the comment that I put up from the chat?
No.
So hello to John Pedroza at Pedroza Travel, and he says in Riverside, he's in California, a guy died by a wild donkey.
Donkeys. Okay, not donkeys, but I did have a horse call where it's a horse culture, cowboy stuff. Lady was going out, saddled up for her ride. She got to the gate. The horse bucked. She went off, hit her head, dead right there.
Oh, wow.
Did have that.
Was that easy to figure out? So when you go and look at the scene, is it like right away you know what happened, or did someone see it? Or
I am so good that I knew before I even got there, because there were
phone rang and you already
the witnesses told me what happened. So I didn't know what
the psychic.
Yeah, sometimes you have to really, look at stuff and go, how did this person end up here? Especially with accidents. We would have on the freeway, you think about it, you're going 85 and a semi truck is coming the other way at 85 and somebody would cross the median.
Yeah.
And do that math. That's 170 mile an hour crash. And atoms split at that speed.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And you would find a body 200 yards away, or it would take you 45 minutes to find the driver of a car because you didn't know where they got tossed. So, you can ask me about the motorcycle story too. If what I told you is not too graphic, I can tell you some more stuff. But,
oh yeah, no, I'm fine. You guys feel free in the chat. If we're getting into something that you feel like is over a line, you let me know. But again, part of what I want to do in the streams is just share what life is like for police officers. Interesting or unusual or just real life stories that you can share us. It's not just walking around with a badge eating donuts. I just want people to understand
there was a little bit of
that. Well, you need a little bit of that to balance off that other stuff that you were just describing.
It was actually bagels at the time. I was with the newer age cops, and we got Starbucks and bagels. So
hey, and what did you just tell me to remember to ask you? Now I already forgotten. I was going to put it on the list.
I have no idea.
So you asked me to remind.
I just wanted to mention, if anybody out there has a question, anything cop related or Tucson related or death investigator related, please ask, because I have, like you were saying before, I have no restraints. Yeah. Nobody's gonna fire me. No one's gonna sue me, and I'll give you the straight up answers.
Yeah. Again, my guest last week. My guest last week is still working, so he couldn't even tell us what the police department he works for. He has to be so careful. And we have a retired sheriff's deputy that lives the property just north of us that we've become friends with. He may do an interview with me as well, but he explained a similar kind of thing. He's did he say he's an expert witness at times still? He does something now still where he has to be very careful things he talks about or things he says, because if and when he's called to be a witness for something, they can go through his social media or look at interviews he's done and disqualify him because of something he talked about that he shouldn't have talked about. So
thank the good Lord there were not video cameras. When I came on 1990, you know, and now with the body cams, you can't even go to the bathroom without somebody looking over your shoulder. You know, it's so bad now, and not that we were running around running amok. It's just, you know, I'm sure everyone out there does not appreciate somebody looking over your shoulder at everything you do at your job.
Hearing everything you say. Yeah.
And it's not just you, it's all the attorneys. It's the public. They see everything you do and what the decisions you make. And so I'm glad that wasn't around.
And yet the flip side of that, my perception is, based on these police pursuit videos and stuff I'm watching, is that I'm amazed at how often the perpetrator that's being chased or apprehended or arrested or all of the above is saying things that are not happening. Like women in these videos I'm watching, the women will like right away go to some kind of assault. You assaulted me. You know, I'm looking at it on the camera, on the video, and the guy has been 6 feet away from her the whole time. But she's thinking she can scream that or say that. And so I look at it and think, okay, that's the good side of it. That
was the good side.
Yeah, protects the officers against bogus complaints or accusations from these hopped up criminals.
And that's part of cop life, is being sued, being accused, constantly having to defend everything you do.
Yeah.
So the amount of liability involved in law enforcement is staggering. And what the departments do and what the cities do is they try to rid themselves or pass off the liability to the officers.
Yeah.
And the way they do that, if you see, you know, you're talking about police pursuits. So let me go there. When you see these pursuits and they're going, you know, 100 miles an hour or whatever, and I should say getting there. Once they're pursuing, it's kind of it's whatever happens.
Yeah.
But if you're going to a hot call and you're going lights and sirens, and you see these cops going 100 miles an hour, I guarantee they're not supposed to be doing that. The reason is our department had a rule that if you had to go lights and sirens, we call that code 3. If we had to go code 3 anywhere, we were authorized to go 10 miles an hour over the speed limit.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So if we were doing 15 miles an hour over the speed limit and we had an accident, guess whose fault it is?
It's on you.
And there's no way, you know, when you've got another cop screaming for backup and they're getting the crap pounded out.
Oh yeah, or someone's firing at them. Yeah.
You're doing Dukes of Hazzard through intersections.
Yeah.
That's what you do. But you know, when you're doing it, you're out of policy. And yeah. But they do that with everything. Use of force is so specific now that you almost have to stop during a fight and go, well, what's my next move? What's on the force continuum? What can I do next? You don't have that time. People don't realize that this isn't.
No, because that's life or death sometimes, right?
Yes.
That split second to decide, yeah.
And it's so easy to do the Monday morning quarterback stuff. And it's so easy to say, well, why didn't the cop do this? Well, it's a fluid thing. And the dynamics are always changing. When you get into a fight, let me tell you this. So when a cop gets into a fight, you see cops wrestling with somebody, every fight a cop gets into involves a gun. Every fight.
Because he's got a gun with him.
Because the cop is wearing a gun. So while you're fighting these people or wrestling them or trying to get their hands behind their back, you're also have to protect your gun.
Yep.
And if you carry people say, oh, well, I've got a backup. I've got a boot gun or whatever. Well, you can't protect two guns and fight somebody. So it's very dicey. And then you add a taser onto your belt. Now you have, you've got your handgun, you've got pepper spray, you've got your baton, and you've got a taser. And you've got to guard all this stuff, keep them from grabbing that.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be fighting over your own gun. So there's more to it than people are exposed to, I think, or realize.
Did you ever have to get into a fight? Did you
I'm
ever have
sorry,
to like?
did I what?
Did you ever have to get into a fight or wrestle someone to the ground or?
Weekly,
Oh,
probably 2 or 3 times a week.
oh my
Tucson's
gosh.
where I work. Tucson, Arizona, like I said, is an hour and a half from the border.
Okay, so
So,
it can have some rough people around.
well, let me. So we're an hour and a half from the border, and all the drugs that come up through Mexico are funneled through El Paso, through Juarez, through San Diego, and through Tucson.
Okay.
And I mean, all the drugs that come through Mexico, and they would come up to Tucson, and they would have load houses, and then they would split up the dope and send it all over Tucson. So it was either or all over the country.
Yeah.
So we dealt with that, and the cartel is very big on the southern border. I'm sure a lot of that is coming out now, but on the Mexican side, it's all the cartel owns everything.
Yeah.
There is no law enforcement.
Yeah.
You see, federales. The federales are not part of the federal government. They're all cartel. I don't. That's my humble opinion. But after 24 years of seeing this stuff, it was hard. What were we talking about?
Well, I had asked you if you ever had to get in a fight.
Oh, the
Because
fight.
you were just reminding and
Yeah.
impinging on us that in the middle of altercations there are all these weapons involved that bad guys have access to if things line up right. So
absolutely.
what does a utility belt weigh roughly?
Oh, 30, 40 pounds maybe.
Golly.
A lot of back problems.
Golly.
I didn't have any. Luckily I didn't have any back problems, but yeah, it sucks. Bulletproof vest. That's another 10, 15 pounds.
Oh my gosh.
And they don't breathe. So it's like, imagine this: Tucson summer. It's 115 degrees out. Oh, there was a traffic accident in the middle of the intersection.
You're standing in the.
We need you to stand out there in your black shiny boots, in your black uniform, with a vest on, and wearing a bulletproof vest is like wrapping yourself in plastic.
Oh.
You sweat. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that's why you've always been so slim, then, huh?
Well, part of it, yeah. It worked me to death.
Yeah.
But as far as the fights go, it was constant. There was just every day somebody was in a fight. You were either going to help them, or you were hoping they were coming to help you. Or Tucson, Arizona is a college town, University of Arizona. Raytheon, big defense contractors there.
Okay.
Mining, copper mining is huge there, and gangs and meth. So Tucson is like the meth capital of the southern United States.
Wow.
We used to call it the Detroit of the Southwest, and the kids there call it the Dirty T. So, unfortunately, I spent 50 years there, and it was beautiful back in the 70s and 80s, and then it went south. And I apologize to anybody that's in Tucson that might be listening, but Tucson is a crap hole.
Yeah. Weren't you guys in Texas for a while?
Visiting friends.
Okay. I was thinking you moved here at some point.
We wanted to move to Austin. Yeah.
Okay.
Austin.
I think that may be what I'm thinking of. I think I may remember you saying you were thinking about moving to Austin. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I'm looking at. Oh yeah, there was that comment. I know agencies who are giving out $45,000 hiring bonuses and still can't get recruits because he'd made a comment earlier about how the liability for the officers is causing hiring shortages, which makes sense. Who would want to take on that risk along with just the risk of dealing with criminals?
Let me ask you this: how many jobs out there are there that, in a split second, you can go from being Dudley Do-Right, just the best cop ever, to 5 minutes later you're being, you're a felon, and you're looking at, or you're being accused of a felony, and you're looking at jail or whatever. You lose your job, you lose your family, all that in like that. It happens like that. And what cops do today, because of the atmosphere of everything going on, cops are avoiding work. And what I say is, you don't stop somebody that may not look like you. Cops are avoiding, the white cops are stopping white motorists.
Oh, wow.
And they'll avoid an ethnic motorist or somebody of color motorist just for that. They don't want to lose their job. Why do that? So it's almost like anti-racism. It's horrible what's going on. That cops are afraid to go to calls because they don't want to go to prison. They don't want to lose their job, and that's unfortunate
state of affairs.
The incentives for being a cop, the $45,000, it sounds great, but it's not worth it. It sounds great, but once you get in, there's no amount of money I would go back for.
Oh, wow.
24 years, and I loved it. Most of it, I loved it. I would never do it again. And if I had it to do over, I should have been a mechanical engineer. Oh. but I am glad I did it, and I'm glad I had the experiences I did. It's definitely changed me. It's molded who I am.
Yeah. Back to police chases. Did you ever have to do like high-speed highway pursuits?
Oh, yeah. But when I came on in 90, we didn't have anti-lock brakes, and they didn't throttle the cars back. The cars we had Caprices and the Crown Vics, and they were fast back then. They hadn't stopped the pursuit stuff, and I'll get in more about that. But when I first came on, if somebody ran from a cop, we chased them, and we got in some great pursuits. And I'm talking about adrenaline through the roof, where your head hurts after the pursuit because it was so much fun. I mean, I can't. So that part of it was fun. What started happening is, again, I get back to the liability. Cops were starting to kill people, or pursuits. They would chase somebody for a red light or running a stop sign, and that person would take off. And you would chase them down the street, and they would either run into a telephone pole and kill themselves, or they would run through an intersection and kill somebody else. So, and then you step back and you go, how do you justify that? For what reason? Now, so what our department did was they restricted the reasons we could pursue, the justifications for the pursuit. And it had to be a violent crime, number one. It had to be like murder, sexual assault, robbery in progress, stuff like that. It had to be, or a warrant for that stuff. It had to be a dangerous person. It had to be somebody worth risking your life to catch. So, other than that, we let people go. People would run from us all the time, and unfortunately, they started that in California, and then they started having problems with the motorcycle gangs. These kids on crotch rockets were going around, and because the cops couldn't chase them, they could basically do whatever they want, and they're still doing that today. So that was unfortunate.
You talked.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, you talked about the adrenaline, just the adrenaline rush of chasing. So when I just watch these videos on YouTube, it's like the dash cam view of these officers doing these high-speed chases. I feel like I'm full of adrenaline. It's like a video game experience for me watching this happen, and I really will catch myself holding my breath or realize that I can feel my heart beating, and or I'll see an accident almost happen, and so I can't imagine being the one that's really in the vehicle, the vehicle that I'm watching. I just can't imagine it.
You get very focused, and it's the most addictive drug there is an adrenaline dump like that. Yeah. And it caused me to go on SWAT. So after I had 3 years on, I was still in the bicycle unit, and I started doing the SWAT stuff too. And talk about adrenaline there. We were serving 1 to 2 search warrants a day, and then we'd have about 15 to 20 full call outs a year, and those were suicidal people or a bank robber that was barricaded in a house or something like that.
Okay.
And we'd have 15 of those roughly a year, and
Okay.
those were just pure adrenaline.
Wow. Did you do pit maneuvers?
Yes, yeah, we started doing those, and we had spike strips too.
Uh-huh.
The pit maneuvers. Okay, here's where the department screwed us on liability on these. So you can't do a pit maneuver unless you're under, I think it was like 25 miles an hour.
Oh no.
Yeah, you can't do it because if you spin somebody out and they die, you lose your job and you get
Oh
sued.
my gosh.
Yeah,
That's not even a
yeah.
chase if it's
So
that slow, is it?
it's dumb.
You could
Yeah.
run after the guy outside
So
your car and catch him.
yeah,
That's so
and
sweet.
we trained a lot on it. We had a lot of training on it, but when it came to real world, where somebody's all over the road or they see what you're about to do, and it doesn't work as clean as you see
Okay. In these videos
as
I'm
it does
watching.
at training. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not as clean. So,
So yeah,
and the
there's
spike
the
strips, we flatted more police tires than bad guy tires this last
oh
one.
no.
Yeah.
Oh no. Oh no. So is that something that you learned during your academy days, the driving skills, and or is that
Well,
something you just
you have a basic driving class, yes, and
okay.
then it's a lot on the job training, but you get to learn the basics of high speed cornering and shuffle steering and all the cool stuff but we would also have advanced training where we would do the pit maneuver, and then every 6 months or once a year we would have like proficiency training where you have to go
Oh,
qualify on your weapon, and then they would always throw in some extra training like the pit maneuver or spike strips or whatever like that.
okay. Do departments issue you your gun, or are you allowed to like pick your own gun, or how does that work?
When I came on in '90, they were still issuing revolvers, the old Smith and Wesson wheel guns. You know, yeah. But we had the option in the academy. We had the option to buy our own firearm, and that's what I did. I got a
Okay.
semi-auto 6 hour. So,
Okay.
and then about 4 or 5 years later, the department did start supplying
Issuing.
the weapons.
Okay.
Yeah, issuing the weapons, and
What caliber is
so
the 6 hour? What caliber is that 6 hour?
oh, well, at the time I had a 9 millimeter,
Okay.
and then our department started going to 40 caliber, which it's a
Wow.
little larger bullet,
Uh-huh.
supposed to have a little more knockdown power. It doesn't matter.
Mhm.
If you hit somebody between the eyes, it doesn't matter.
Whatever. Yeah, right, right. BB gun, if in the right
Yeah.
place, is gonna. Yeah.
No, they were real worried about, people ask, well, why don't cops carry, like the Dirty Harry gun, why don't you carry a
Magnum.
Desert Eagle? It's because if most likely if you're going to get in the shooting, it's in an urban environment, you're in an apartment complex, which
Oh, close
are
quarters
cardboard
and
walls. Yeah, you don't want
yeah,
to shoot through
three
four
houses.
apartments.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we had that issue.
So I know you told me to remind you to tell us the mullet story. Is this a good
Oh, the
part for the
mullet story.
mullet story?
Okay. So I did a lot of off-duty work and a lot of security for concerts and stuff like that. Well, I got assigned. I did Billy Ray Cyrus.
He
I
was
did
big
that
back then.
concert,
Yeah.
and this was a long time ago.
Yeah.
That's Miley Ray Cyrus's
Yeah,
dad
he
for
was
everybody
big back
out there.
then. Achy
He
breaky
was
heart.
the achy breaky line dancing heart. Oh my God! This was right in the thick of that
Uh-huh.
that
That
mania.
country. Yeah.
So when he came to Tucson, my assignment was to shadow him and follow him about 5 paces behind him and guard his mullet. And I crap you not. My job was to defend his hair. The
Yeah.
reason was there were bounties on his mullet. People were carrying scissors, and they in other venues they had run up and tried to cut his hair, tried to take a clipping of his mullet. So
You are not kidding.
I got paid.
You are not kidding.
I got paid to guard Billy Ray Cyrus's mullet.
Yeah, but was that as cool as blowing up doors?
No.
So and back to blowing up doors. So what would you use to blow up a door? Like
Well,
C4, like military stuff?
yeah, when I started in SWAT, I don't want to get off the rail here too much, but there are four main SWAT teams in the country. There's LA, super busy, Las Vegas, super busy. 5, I'll say. Florida, Orange County, very busy. New York, and Tucson. And Tucson, because of the border access and the corridor and all the dope, we were constantly serving search warrants for narcotics, load houses, what have you, just constantly. Anyway, we were that busy. Where were we? What were we talking about?
We're talking about blowing up doors, and what do you use to blow up
blowing up doors. So when I got on the SWAT team, I was a little bigger than I am now. And I did all the mechanical. I didn't do all of it, but the mechanical breaching. And that's when you see the guy with the ram. That was me.
Physics, yeah.
Or we called it a hooligan tool. It's actually called a Halligan tool. It looks like a pry bar. So you have one guy on the pry bar and another guy ramming the pry bar. You pop the wrought iron open, and then the ram guy steps up and blows the door off the hinges. And you have to do that as fast as you can.
Oh yeah.
If you're going to get shot, it's going to be through the door.
Yeah, and the first sound the guys hear, they're ready to take you out. The bad guys, if they hear you
the bad guys.
touching their door.
So the 3 worst positions are they were actually the best positions, but the 3 worst positions on the SWAT team were the very first guy coming in the door, the point guy, the breachers, the door breacher, where there be mechanical or explosives, because they had to stand in front of the door, and the very last guy in. And the reason the very last guy in is the most dangerous is because when the dealers, they hear the cops coming and we pound on the door, search warrant, they all run to the back room. They would grab their dope or whatever and run to the back bedroom.
Okay, right.
So as the team comes into the place, everybody peels off and takes, one team goes to the kitchen, one goes to the living room, the next bedroom, and the last guy in line usually ends up in the back bedroom where the bad guys are. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So how is that assigned? How is it determined who the point guy is and who the
team leader, the supervisor, and I was a lead. What was I call a senior operator? So I was kind of like a corporal on the SWAT team, but the sergeant or the team leader would hand out the assignments, and that was based on skill. Basically, you put the old guys up front because they're old guys, and who cares? No, you put the experience up front.
Yeah.
And then everybody had a specialty on the team. So we had medics, we had snipers, we had the explosive breachers, mechanical breachers. Everybody had a specialty, and mine just happened to be the breaching stuff.
Okay.
I also taught. We had some of the military folks out there might know what this is. It's an M113A1, which is an amphibious personnel carrier. It looks like a tank, but it doesn't have a gun on it. Some of them are fitted with the articulating Sidewinder tow missile launchers. Well, we had 2 of those, and I was one of the lead guys on those. So we would take those to a SWAT call, and we had the best shield ever because we would just hide behind that and sneak up on the front of the house. It was great.
So did you feel like, or is it accurate that the restrictions, for lack of a better word, were less or different for SWAT than they were just for your everyday police officer?
No, same rules, same use of force, all that. The thing about the SWAT calls, when you got to a SWAT call, all the negotiating had pretty much been done, or they weren't going to give up, and you were already up here. They had already taken shots at cops or whatever. So you didn't have to baby them. Yeah, it was already a done deal that these people needed to go to jail. It was over with.
So during
I did a little. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, you go ahead.
Oh, I did a little bit of negotiating too. That wasn't really my thing. I'm a talker, but it's hard when you talk to somebody and you talk for an hour or 2 hours to somebody on a phone, or you're yelling through a window or whatever, and then 2 hours later they walk out with a shotgun and put it under their chin. So that sucks. That really sucks. That's stuff that doesn't go away.
I'm thinking now of again, a lot of these questions are coming from some of these crazy videos I'm watching. I'm going to guess that when you were like a patrol officer, you had your share of DUI. I don't know when they started being. It used to be called DWI here.
Yes, it
driving
used
while
to say,
intoxicated.
yeah,
Now I'm
driving
hearing
while and then
DUI.
driving under.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, yeah.
And so, do you have
No,
any
well,
funny
remember,
stories though?
we were a college town, so
Oh, a lot of kids
DUI.
overdoing it. Okay, yeah.
We were a mining blue collar with the copper mines. A lot
Yep.
of DUIs. Um, yeah, we had a lot of that. Most of the funny calls I would go on is somebody would call in a medical emergency. Somebody's passed out at an intersection. Like they're slumped over the wheel. Well, in case it was a DUI, sometimes it was a medical emergency, but this happened more than you'd think. So we would come up on these cars. We came up with a process. One car would back up to the front of the vehicle, and another cop would come behind them and kind of box them in,
Uh-huh.
because when they would wake up,
You
they
don't
would
want them
either
hitting the
take their
gas.
foot off the brake or
Yeah.
whatever, and you didn't
Yeah.
want them rolling through an intersection or
Yeah.
running. So
Yeah.
we would hit them in, and then we would knock on the window and
Yeah.
wake them up.
Yeah. And
So
so,
that was it.
how often then did you actually come upon someone that was having a medical emergency?
A lot of elderly in Tucson, because it's we'd get the snowbirds come in. Well, we
Okay.
had a lot of medical emergencies. We'd have a lot of diabetic issues. We would get DUI calls. Oh, this guy's all over the road, or I'm talking to this guy. We had Davis Monthan Air Force Base there too. We
Okay.
get called at the gate all the time because the guards, the servicemen coming and going. Well, when they come back on, if they were crap faced, I'm trying to say the PG word. If they were crap faced, then the guards would call us, and we'd come over and do a DUI investigation. But we started seeing a lot of diabetic. When the blood sugar goes down, you start acting like you're drunk, and you would swear to God that these people were just crap faced.
Right.
But we would call the medics to come over, and they would check them, and by God, their blood sugar's next to nothing. So, they would go from wanting to fight you to being your best friend after a candy bar. So I always laugh at, the Snickers commercial where they say, "Hey, you're not
Betty
feeling
White
good
or whatever." Yeah.
That's absolutely true.
Oh, how funny!
So that was.
But do you have any funny stories, like field sobriety tests? Somebody that just, I don't know, did something crazy trying to do the tests, or?
Let's see. I don't think I did. We actually had. DUI was such a problem in Tucson that we had a specialized unit that they had intoxilizers in the car. They had all the training.
Oh, wow.
It's not just alcohol. So you're looking for narcotics, and they were specialized in HGN, which is when they put the pen in your face and you have to follow it with your eyes and your eye will twitch.
What's that called? Nystagmus? What is that called?
Nystagmus, yeah.
Yeah.
And I can't remember HGN. It's hyper-nystagmus syndrome or something. Anyway, it was very accurate. But those guys specialized in that. They would look at the pupils, and they would take blood pressure and do temperature checks and whatever they did. But so if I ran into a DUI, most likely I would call a DUI unit over, and they would come assume the investigation.
Okay. So when you compare your time in law enforcement before SWAT with your time with SWAT, which one would you pick if you could have done one of them, just one of them? I mean, to me, obviously, because I don't know, I'm thinking SWAT sounds awesome. But I don't. Awesome. Again, I'm the ignorant civilian that doesn't know anything more than what I see.
SWAT was so awesome, they made a movie about it.
Yeah, and TV shows.
There were some really great parts of the job. In fact, the job is so interesting that people come and volunteer. We would have civilian volunteers that would come out and ride with us to help us do paperwork, or they would ride by themselves and they would go out to a call and do, we call it point control. It's when you go out and direct traffic. They would do that to free up an officer to go to a hot call, something like a family fight or something like that.
Wow.
So when you have people volunteering to come do that stuff for free, it's got to be there's got to be some kind of hook to it.
So how does
Yeah.
that work though? Where did those like was there screening? They had to
Oh
have
yeah,
background
yeah, no,
checks and okay.
absolutely, yeah, yeah, because they're out driving a police car basically by themselves, but
Okay.
they would have a different color uniform on,
Yeah.
and now they call them, well, we have community service officers now, but we had the volunteer guys, and they would go out and write parking tickets and
Okay.
do
I've
stuff
never
like
heard
that.
of
But
that.
they would get background checks, and they would get some training, so they didn't try to become a cop. We dealt with that several times where we would have people impersonating cops or start doing traffic stops. We would have a civilian that would see somebody run a light, so they would chase them down and stop them. It's like, you don't do that. You can't do
Yeah.
that. So, yeah, but
Interesting.
for the most part, they were great to have.
How
And
interesting.
they
I've
really
never
took
heard
a load
of
off
that.
the bus.
I have never heard of that. Hello to John and Sarah at Two Doves Bees and Gardens. Thank you for being here today. I want to go back to the death investigator stuff because I
Okay.
still remember how intrigued I was when you told me way back when that that's what you were doing,
Mhm.
and so how did that happen? Like, how did you had retired from being a police officer, right?
Mhm.
But you were still with the department, or you were away for a while and then you went back, or
No, I networked a little bit. See, I would be the one that would go on the check welfare and find
okay,
grandma.
okay, and the dogs. Yeah.
Quick story. So I go to this one call. The whole family's out in the yard. They're crying. They just found grandma inside. I'm like, oh my God. Okay. Where's grandma? She's inside in her room on the bed. Okay. So I go in there, and there's kids jumping around on the bed with grandma. I'm like, what's going on here? That's just weird. So yeah. And anyway, I would go on these death calls and do my investigation, and then I would call the medical examiner's office to come out and do their investigation and collect the body and take it. Well, I knew all those guys, so when I retired, it was just kind of natural that I would transition over and do that.
Okay. Would you have done that longer? Is that something that if you had started doing that earlier in your career, you would have done that longer?
Absolutely not.
No.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
No. And the reason is it is constant, nonstop sadness, pain, anger, grief. It's a horrible job. I mean, it's got to be done. Somebody's got to do it. But you're constantly doing death notifications, giving people the worst news of their life.
Right.
And I did this as a cop too.
Right.
But I would give people the worst news of their life, and the lengths, the horror of what one human can do to another human. It just baffled me, and it would get worse and worse. I would see something and I would think, "There's nothing worse than this," and then I would see something worse.
What is do you know, or can you guesstimate what is the average length of time somebody does stay in that particular role, death investigator?
Well, when I was in the office, we had a pretty high turnover rate. There were a few hardcore people that stayed, but after a while, it doesn't matter who you are. You think you're tough or immune to it. I thought I was tough and immune to it, but after 7 years of just grinding horror, and everybody says it, and it's true, but the kids are what gets you.
Oh gosh!
When you go on a call where, I wish I could tell you some of these, but when a parent hurts their own kid, and you wonder, how is this possible? How do people do this? But people never failed to let me down, and it got to the point I quit that. I got out of that, and I left Tucson because Tucson's 1 million people. And it got to the point where I could not find a street where I could drive down and not go, oh, I pulled a guy out of the bushes over there. Or that guy died on the toilet over there. Or, oh my God, that blew up, And just driving across town was you talk about PTSD.
I was going to say, isn't that considered PTSD? Yeah.
Everybody that was in that field has PTSD to varying degrees.
Right.
There's no way to avoid it.
What were the best parts?
Anybody that says they don't is lying.
What were
What's
the
that?
best parts of being in law enforcement? Best
Uh,
parts of being, say, just a patrol officer or being a regular quote unquote police officer. What were the best parts of that? The parts that allowed you to stay as long as you did stay.
you know, they were few and far in between, but every once in a while you would make a difference. You would connect with a kid, maybe get them back on the right track,
Yeah.
or you would actually save somebody's life, you know, and they were actually genuinely grateful for it. Um, my first week out of the academy, they do. It's called FTO, field training. Eventually, I was a field training officer, and I did that for 19 years. 19 years. But you would ride along. You come out of the academy, and you would
Oh,
ride with an officer for a week,
yeah.
and then you would drive, and the officer would ride with you for
Yeah.
another 4 or 5 months or 6 months, whatever. But my first week out of the academy, I was sitting in my patrol car and I'm puttering down the street. And I'm trying to figure out where everything, make sure I know what I'm doing and not crash into something. And I just pulled out of the station and there was a little lady in her yard, elderly lady, and she's doing her yard work. And I'm officer friendly and I waved at her and she turned around and looked at me and went, gave me
Oh,
one of those.
you're kidding.
And it blew my mind because I was like, wait a minute, I'm
Oh,
Dudley Do Right. I'm the good guy here.
and yet,
And
again, I just want to remind everyone, this is part of why I'm doing this series. I want people to understand what it's like for officers because I think a lot of people are misguided in
well,
what they think you do or what they think your attitude is about what you do. And part of
right.
that you touched on early on, social media or Rodney King type events that
You
get
only hear
splattered
about the
all
bad
over the
stuff.
news and everybody
Right.
hears it. And then your everyday officer that's rescuing kittens and you're keeping little kids out of the street or whatever the things you are doing. You don't hear anything about that. You don't hear
Well, you don't
anything or the
because
heartbreak or
it's it's not newsworthy. No one
it's not
cares.
sensational. Yeah.
It's not sensational. So think about, and I'll ask everybody out there, think of the last contact you had with a police officer. Most likely it was a traffic accident or you were getting a ticket or I'll bet 9 out of 10 it was a negative experience.
Yeah.
And so you've already got that mindset. And then you see on TV, oh my God, Memphis, 5 cops just killed a guy over there.
Yeah.
And, you know, and because I'm going to go back to that $45,000 signing bonus, and that's how desperate they are to get cops, and they have lowered their standards so far that they're taking felons now. They're taking people with felony. If it's nonviolent, if it's just a property thing, then
I
some
didn't even
department.
think felons could vote. Don't you use your what? Am I just really misinformed, or are there just certain felonies that you can't
I'm
vote
telling
anymore?
you, it's that bad. I don't know if they get their rights
Oh.
restored or what, but they have felony convictions. When I hired on, you couldn't have drug use of any kind. Couldn't
Right.
have smoked a joint or whatever
Right.
they were going to fuck with. Thank
Right.
God I lied to them and they didn't catch me. But
Well, and obviously
so
it didn't impact your ability to do the job.
no,
Whatever you
no,
might have done
but
in your past did not keep you from dedicating yourself to your work.
no. So when I got near the end of my career, they were taking people that had, coke dealers. They were taking people that had all these horrible, because they had to keep lowering their standard to get people in because they couldn't get people to pass after a while.
Oh my God.
I sat on hiring boards where these kids would come in their suits and ties and everything, and they would sit down. And one of the questions we would ask is, "Have you smoked marijuana?" And then 9 out of 10 would say, "Yeah, I've smoked." And you'd ask them, "Well, when's the last time?" And they'd say, "Oh, back in high school, I tried it or whatever." But we'd have one or two that would come in and say they would look at their watch.
Oh, yeah.
You would
About
ask
10
them
minutes before I came in.
exactly. We would
Golly.
have kids come in and they had to check in at the front desk and you have to leave your driver's license. Well, when you leave your driver's license, the front desk person runs your name. And one day I'm sitting there with two other HR people and we were interviewing this kid for a job, and the front desk guy comes in and walks up to the kid and says, stand up, turn around, put your hands behind your back. He had a felony warrant.
Oh my
He
God.
had a warrant, and yeah, so he came in for a job, and he ended up in jail.
A trip overnight to the county jail. Here's a comment from John. This is John at Two Does Bees and Gardens. I've known several officers. I used to work for Alameda County Superior Court back when Oakland, California was the murder capital of the U.S.
Yeah.
We have great respect for our police. And I'm sure there are people that, because of the nature of the work they do or have done, they see a different side of it too. But I think your everyday person, all they're going to know about police officers or law enforcement is like what you said, their own personal encounters, which are probably something that was unpleasant. You get pulled over for something, or
absolutely,
cited for something. And
the other aspect is, when you're a cop, you cannot be a beta. There are no beta cops.
Correct.
You have to be the
you don't
alpha.
last long. You wouldn't last.
Let me tell you what. I worked around the University of Arizona, so my beat was all the college kids, and you would go Friday night. You'd go to football, where the football team's having a party, and there's 40 people in there, and they all outweigh you by 100 pounds, and you got to be the one that walks into the middle of it, says, and gets everybody's attention and tells them what to do. And you have to be the alpha of the alphas to do that.
Yeah,
I never had any problems.
It's making me think of times when we've had like a little dog here, because we board dogs and we board all breeds. And I get such a kick out of when we have the little dogs come. So like I say little in comparison to a German Shepherd, little Cocker Spaniel, little French Bulldog. And guess who's in charge when they're here?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And they're not mean. It's not that they're violent or mean or anything, but just the way they carry themselves. And the dogs, man, pick up on it.
The size of the fight in the dog.
Absolutely. So that's what I'm imagining as you're explaining that. Yeah, I don't know how an officer could last more than a minute as a beta in a
you can't. There's
potentially
no
dangerous or.
So think of this. So you're an alpha. You find that you see a police officer. You know they're an alpha, and if they're a really bad alpha, they're an a-hole. Right?
Yeah.
Now, most people have contact with motor officers, motorcycle cops, because they're the ones that are enforcing traffic.
Really,
that's who sees. Normal citizens. You don't really have a lot of interaction with cops. You don't need to.
Correct.
You're following the law. You're not a crap bag.
Right.
So you don't have a lot of interaction. But the motor cops are what everybody sees, and the motor cops, they have, in my mind, one of the worst jobs there is. Now, motor cops love it because you get paid to ride a motorcycle, and I think that would be fun. But almost every interaction they have with the public is negative. I mean, their whole day is negative contact. And at least as a just a grunt patrol officer, at least I could walk around and
have a conversation.
I would talk to victims. I would go to a burglary victim or an assault victim, and they were happy to see me and they wanted to talk to me. But when you're a motor cop and you're handing out tickets right and left,
they don't like you at all. Yeah.
Nobody likes you, and you have to do it. I mean, somebody's got to be out there doing it, and if you don't, chaos reigns.
I wanted to take a second and say hi to Troy at Bayou Bengal Fantasy Network. I did see you come in. I put your "Hey everyone" on the screen, but I wanted to say hi to you directly. Thanks for being here at the stream today. I have a graphic I want to put up with you, and we can look at it together, and you can tell me what you think. And I was doing this research because last week on the show, Kevin made a comment about, and it had to do with that, people's perceptions of police officers and their negative opinions and the stereotypical stuff that some people see. And Kevin was saying, but if you look at who are the most trusted people or who is most inclined to demonstrate misconduct or something, then you can see police are pretty good guys. They do a good job and they stay out of trouble. So I have a graphic I'm going to pull up. So I'm going to share my screen. You and I, we'll both be able to see it together. And I'll go over that and you can kind of, agree or disagree or
Oh,
So this was this is a graph depicting America's most and least trusted professionals. It starts at the top with the most trusted. So there's like a low or very low perception of this particular professional being dishonest
oh,
or inappropriate. So number
right.
one, meaning most trusted, is nurses. I like that.
Negatory. My wife is a nurse practitioner, and I'm going to
Uh-huh.
say right now, no, I understand that. And
Yeah.
then you got
And then medical
doctors.
doctors, and then
I don't.
pharmacists.
I don't believe that anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, police
Oh, yeah.
officers are up there.
Yeah.
Amazingly, yeah.
Yeah. And aside here, I may have his wife Robin on the show, and we'll revive our Invisible Illness series because she's got some powerful and
Hmm.
almost tragic firsthand experience with dealing with medical professionals in the face of an invisible, maybe not as easy to diagnose as other illnesses situation. So she and I, when we were on the phone the other night, I talked with her, and I think it might be worth reviving that series and having her on the show. But that's another story. And so, yeah, those are the kind of things that, just like with police officers, her experiences, your firsthand experiences, would obviously impact your perception and your
Hmm.
opinion of
Absolutely.
doctors. Whereas there's a bunch of good doctors out there that obviously overall people find them trustworthy and honest. But after
Yeah.
doctors is pharmacists and then high school teachers. So again, this is in rank from most trusted down to least trusted, least honest. So we've got
Yeah.
nurses, most trusted,
I
doctors,
see.
pharmacists, high school teachers, police officers. So very, very high on the list still, as far as being trustworthy and not inclined to behave inappropriately. Accountants, then, clergy. That's interesting to me that people find in this particular poll. This is from Forbes. It says rating of selected U.S. professionals in terms of honesty and ethical standards. This was from a 2018
Hmm.
study. Uh, Clergy are less trusted than police officers, according to this. That's very interesting to me. Journalists are even less trusted than clergy. Then we
I'll bet
start
that's a
getting
lot
into
lower. Yeah.
then we start getting into the bottom of the barrel people. Building contractors,
Oh yeah.
bankers, real estate agents, lawyers, business executives, car salespeople, and then the number one least trusted, most believed to practice unethical behavior is members of Congress.
Yeah. Looks like it breaks down where the top of the list is people that are people that want to help you,
Uh huh.
and the bottom is people that want something from
They're
you.
out to get something. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're out to get something. So, what I don't quite understand is see how the graph works. For the most part, it slopes downward with the percentage getting just gradually higher and higher and higher until you get to the bottom. But then there's those couple that jut out, like the journalists, 34% dishonest, or 34% of people find them dishonest. Maybe it's just because of the way they had these listed on the thing. I would have thought they really would have made the graph so that, each new line would be a slightly higher number than the line before. But it doesn't matter. I just found that really interesting. And when Kevin, pointed out that some people will say they don't trust the police, or the police are corrupt or unethical or whatever. And then when you look at things like this, it would appear, police are not necessarily bad guys, or perceived as bad
Well,
guys to most people.
yeah. Yeah. People are always telling me bad cop stories, and then they expect me to defend the cops, and I'm like, well,
Yeah.
no, that sounds like a crappy thing to do. That guy should have been fired.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you this: the one thing that is universal among cops, the most hated, are dirty cops.
Oh yeah.
Because
Well, and
they screw up.
that's to be expected. That should
Yeah,
be
if you get a
expected.
dirty cop, what does it do? It ruins,
The whole, yeah. Yeah,
it
and
really
I would
there.
imagine no one hates that more than other cops.
They don't. That's
Yeah.
exactly right.
Yeah.
So, and we did have problems in the department. We had a guy that did an armed robbery. The victim shot him in the head. He she died. That was interesting. Oh, let me tell you that story real quick. This was about 20 years ago. So we had a detective. He was actually a robbery detective, and he followed a bar owner home one night, and because he knew the guy took the cash receipts home. And when the guy got home, he came out of the bushes, whatever, and he was wearing a ski mask, and he held the guy up at gunpoint. Well, he didn't know that the guy that owned the bar had some, let's say, mafia friends. He knew what he was doing. So he pulled out a gun and shot the robber right between the eyes. Well, all the cops get there, and everybody's patting the guy on the back because the victim finally won.
Yeah,
right?
you took care of
So
it.
all the detectives show up, and they decide, they photograph the scene, and they do their thing, and the sun comes up, and they say, okay, well, let's take his mask off now and get some facial shots before we call the medical examiner to come in. And they pulled up the thing, and my God, it was it was a guy they worked with, and it turned out the guy was just he was a great cop, he was a great detective, he did some really good work, but he was, for whatever reason, he decided to rob this guy.
I can't imagine that moment when all the guys around then see who it is. I can't imagine.
I wasn't there, but even when we heard about it, we were just like floored, because this guy was just a great guy, you would think.
Yeah.
But if you look at cops and you go, oh, cops are bad or cops are good or whatever, cops are exactly like society.
Yep.
Cops are just they're just a spattering of people that are taking out of society.
Yep.
So if you're an accountant or a dog catcher or whatever you are, look at your department or the people you work with, and there's probably some crappy person you work with. Well, that's true everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
But again,
so not all cops are great.
Yeah. And again, I just want people, I'm not going to excuse that or give that a pass, but that's what I want people to understand. Your police officers are people too. They're people too. So it's not that they're like a special immune to temptation or stuff like that. And frankly, I don't know how there aren't more bad cops. Again, just the nature of dealing with the stuff you deal with every day and the toll that has to take on your spirit and your a perception of humans, and it's amazing to me. So there is some special element there. Again, I watch these like police videos, and I'm just struck sometimes at how level-headed they stay in the middle of all of it. And where I'm thinking, it's me, I'm just watching the video and I'm screaming and I'm saying, oh, you idiot. Oh my God. How did he do that? Stop him, hit him, whatever. I'm just really emotionally invested in just this thing I'm watching on the TV. And yet the officer stays level-headed through the whole thing. And I think you're frozen. Are you frozen? You may have to go out and come back in. I'm going to show another, statistic. Let me send him a text message right quick. Hang on. I'm sending JC a text message, y'all. Oh, okay. So he went out. He's going to come back in. So I don't need to send him a text message now. But I will pull up this other, this is from careerexplorer.com. I'm going to pull up this website because I thought this was kind of interesting. The article is, what personality traits do police officers have? And so according to careerexplorer.com, here is a little graph showing the characteristics of police officers. And I'm sure it's, I don't want to stereotype. And just like he was saying, officers they're just regular people. So whatever percentage of the general population is whatever thing, there's going to be a corresponding percentage within a department of officers that may have that same trait or characteristic. Hello, Lee at First Floor Audio. Thank you for being here today. But officers, so according to this website, police officers are enterprising, realistic, conventional, social, investigative, and artistic. So I'm intrigued by the artistic thing, but I wonder if it just has to do with having the ability to maybe think outside the box a little. You know, you're trying to figure out what happened here, gather information in an unbiased way, or as unbiased a way as possible. And I think that takes some right brain ability, you know. So maybe that's where the artistic element would come into play. And then this says the top personality traits. So those were, let's see, police officers tend to be predominantly enterprising individuals. So I'm not sure what that category was, but then it moves on to the top personality traits of police officers are social responsibility and conscientiousness. So on this particular, graph, let's bring JC back up. All right. So on this particular graph, then, it indicates that police officers have personality characteristics of social responsibility, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and openness. Now, a lot of those I would right away think of more like alpha characteristics. I don't think I've ever met a police officer or known a police officer that I wouldn't consider an extrovert. I don't know, again, how long any officer could last in that profession if they were introverted. Because, you ask any introvert that has to deal with the public or speak in front of people or just be out and about mingling, and it can get real uncomfortable. And that's when things are good. That's when the interactions are all positive and people want to be wherever it is they are that you happen to be at the same time. With a police officer, again, knowing that a lot of people's perceptions are just based on their limited interactions and experience of getting pulled over for a traffic violation, or being maybe having to be called as a witness for a crime, or then I don't know how being an introvert could help them last at all. And that's all for that website. And then I have another website. This is, here's another of the most dishonest or most unethical businesses by profession. And let's look at this. So this one compares to the other one. Nurses are considered, most honest and ethical. Engineers next in line. Medical doctors after that. Pharmacists after that. Dentists after that. Police officers, again, I'm thinking they still are ranking really highly on the list. College teachers, that other list had high school teachers, I think, in about this position. Psychiatrists, chiropractors, so we're not quite halfway through the list. Clergy, then this is where that list sort of took off with people perceiving basic or professions to be less honest and more unethical. So this kind of corresponds with that. Journalists, then, bankers, labor union leaders. That's interesting. Lawyers. Lawyers are always just going to be so high on the list. I'll put another plug in for Peter Tragos. You guys check out his channel, because part of his mission is to overcome some of the stereotypes people have about lawyers. And his firm will even make a note, if you ever need legal advice or representation. Granted, you would likely have to be in Florida to actually have them represent, although a lot of lawyers can practice in other states as well. But he's a phone call away. They do a free phone call. So if you have a legal problem, you need to know what to do next, or who to call, or where to go, or what to expect, then you can call him. If you're at his Lawyer YouTube page, his phone number is in the description of all of his videos and live streams. Business executives, state governors, that's pretty sad right there that they're so high on the list, meaning not trusted and considered unethical. Stockbrokers, that's kind of frightening. Advertising professionals, I wonder what that's about. Is that people thinking that, like subliminal messaging or something? Let me see what it says. Sure, it's cool when Mad Men protagonist Dan Draper comes up with an iconic marketing campaign, but in real life, the average American is a bit more wary of when someone is trying to sell them something. So I guess it just has to do with, trying to sell you something or influence you, convince you to buy something. Insurance salespeople, senators, here we get into the government, members of Congress, and then this one shows number one as car salespeople, but they correspond pretty closely with that first graph that we looked at. And then here's another, the 10 most dishonest professions. And this looks like it's going kind of the opposite direction. So number one, meaning most dishonest, is members of Congress. What does that say, guys? Oh, here's a note from Lee about English police. Yeah, obviously I wouldn't have any experience with English police. That's sad. That's sad if their behavior leads people to perceive them as arrogant. And there's a difference in being alpha and in being arrogant. So, maybe that's the sweet spot there, is understanding how to manage a situation and be in control of a situation without being a jerk about it. So members of Congress, most dishonest and unethical, followed by lobbyists, car salespeople, telemarketers, advertising practitioners, stockbrokers, business executives, labor union leaders, lawyers. The lawyers ranked a little better here, and then real estate agents. So I think I'm looking at that right. Yeah, I think number one here. Yeah, because I'm looking at the percentages. So on this list, real estate agents are considered the most honest and ethical. And then I have one. Oh, is this the same one? It looks like I might have opened that same. Nope, this is a different one. 10 most dishonest professions in America. Insurance salespeople is number 10. Oh, where did the rest of it go? Oh, maybe it's a slideshow. Yeah. So that was insurance salespeople. Well, what's it telling me now? Oh, insurance salespeople. This is where I need to go. Okay. Ad removed. Insurance salespeople. Well, let's just see all. Insurance salespeople, percentage of people with a very low or low opinion, 36%. So this again is in ascending order. So the insurance salespeople are considered more honest and ethical than the next one in line, which is state office holders, then stockbrokers. Wow, who knew? Who knew stockbrokers had such a bad, people perceive them as dishonest, or I wonder what that's about. What is that about? I don't know enough about the stock market to know where that would come from. Then labor union leaders, advertising practitioners, senators, car salespeople, telemarketers, lobbyists, and members of Congress. So the one thing I think the takeaway here is police officers weren't even on some of those lists of the top most dishonest, most unethical people. And yet a lot of times you ask just your everyday citizen about their perception of the police, and because of the bad apples in the bunch, it's kind of negative, or maybe even more than kind of negative. And I just want to show a different side of that. Again, let me send him a message and see if he's coming back. Okay, we'll see if he's coming back to round off the show with us. And I just want to let you guys see they're real people, and the experiences they have as officers impacts them. So, aside from the negative perceptions or the negative stereotypes people may have about them, their jobs are beyond what most, if any, of us could possibly even pretend like we would be able to do, much less willing to do. And I just want to highlight that. I want to show support by letting people see the just real life, everyday human side of law enforcement officers, because I don't know that it would even be possible for it to not at least periodically take a toll on them to do what they do, so that maybe they come across as, less than pleasant. Or okay, he's back. You're back.
I'm back. Can you
Yeah.
hear me?
Yeah. And so while you were gone, we just went over some more like websites, some rankings of where police officers or law enforcement officers are in the grand scheme of things. And on most of the top, most dishonest, most unethical lists I just showed, their police officers aren't even on there, which encourages me. But I do know that it's a big problem, even if it's only a small percentage of people that have a bad opinion of police officers, because of the critical nature of the work.
Yeah.
You do.
The news media has just crushed law enforcement, just crushed us.
Yeah.
And I agree. I mean, this stuff, a lot of stuff needs to be exposed. I'm not against that. That's how you root out these people.
Yeah.
But when it's just negative coverage and that's all you hear, and your only experience is getting a speeding ticket, well, that's why I'll tell you, before I was a cop, I was not a big fan of cops. So.
Yeah.
Because they just messed with me all the time.
And and so now, because everything seems to tie back to animals with me, I'm thinking of people I know that they're like afraid of spiders or something. And at some point in their life, they had a bad encounter. They were bitten or stung or whatever. And so their whole lives, then they have this bad attitude. They're fearful. They think they're, bad. And if there's never the opportunity to see the good side or understand who police officers are underneath the uniform and the badge.
There are good spiders and bad spiders. So.
Yes. But see, I know that. Not everybody knows that, just like not everybody realizes there are good police officers and bad ones.
I'll tell you what, if anybody wants to experience what it's like being a police officer, put a uniform on and just walk down the street. And it'll be eye-opening how people watch you. Ooh. It was weird when you start driving around, you're driving a police car, everybody within a half a mile is looking at you.
Wow.
You know that because that's what people do. You see a cop, is he following me? Is he coming after me? Did he turn yet?
I have to give a shout out to the city of Southlake. This is where Richard and I live, because we're like among the lowest crime rates in the world, the number one city to live in the state of Texas, number 4 best city to live in the United States. And awesome. A big part of that is that there is virtually no crime here. We might have a teenager every now and then, vandalize something, but even then I can't think of a story of that, but that's about the extent of it. There's only been one murder here that I know of in the time we've lived here. And that was like some mafia related thing or something. There were people that were here visiting or whatever from out of state or out of the country or whatever. And it was
we had a lot of mafia in Tucson, believe it or not. That's where a lot of them went. Joe Bonanno Sr., if that rings a bell for anybody. He lived in Tucson until he died. And we had a couple of, and I'm sure Joe wasn't involved in this. It's somebody else because he was retired and about dead. But we did have a couple of bombings. We had if you look up Gary Triano, Triano, I think Triano. Anyway, he was blown up in his car at a golf course in Tucson, and our bomb guys went out. I wasn't a bomb guy; I was an explosive guy. So the bomb guys went out, and the scene I think was a half a mile diameter that they searched, and they were finding car parts and Gary Triano parts and whatnot.
Oh my goodness.
We had that. And then back when I was a kid, we had a building get bombed, and it was mafia related.
Oh, wow. Well, again, here I'm just feeling very fortunate, but because it's such a safe place, there have not been instances where something bad enough can happen that the police officers do something, that somebody might perceive as unethical or and so when we see police officers here, it's a fun thing. It's nice, it's pleasant, and I know they appreciate that too, that people want to interact with them.
I would have the crappiest week, and then I'd pull into Starbucks and go through the drive-through and get up to the window and they would tell me the person in front of you just bought your coffee.
Oh yeah, nice.
And that, that made the week go away. So
yep.
It's those little things that are innocuous on the surface, but they stick with you. And I remember I never met these people before, and this was 20, 30 years ago. I only saw them for 5 seconds, but I remember those people. That's how close it is.
Nice. So take that. Let that be a takeaway, guys.
Yeah. If you do really appreciate what they're doing, let them know, because it's huge. Yeah. When somebody smiles and waves at you, it's huge. I would go weeks without seeing a smile or a hello, or just I was part of the furniture, or I was the boogeyman.
Yeah.
Well, one other thing I want to pass on to everybody that's watching. This was common for us. We would walk into a restaurant, and there's a family set it down. They were seated, and they would tell their kids, "Hey, look, if you don't listen or if you don't behave, they're going to take you away." And it crushes you, because you go, wait a minute, we're not the boogeyman, we're not the bad guys. So I would go out of my way and go over to the table and introduce myself, and I would sit down and talk to the kid and say, I would talk to him and say, no, we're not the bad guys, we're not going to take you away, we're here to help you if you need help. And I would tell the parents, hey, if your kid, you take them to the fair and the kid walks away, who are you going to tell? The cops? Yep. And then the cops are going to go look for a little kid that is absolutely terrified of the cops.
Yeah, so, no kidding.
And that starts it out. From an early age, the kids are trained, that's the boogeyman.
Yep.
They're riding around with mom and dad are, there's a
car. Yep.
A flipping cop, So
the
kids are like, yeah, it's a flipping cop.
Yep. So this is a neat comment from Dark Lord Minute. My roommate is security at a casino hotel. He keeps a running tab at the Starbucks for the cops. That is a sweet idea. So there's ways I think you could even anonymously.
It was a lot of the appreciation that was shown to me was anonymous, and I wish it wasn't. I wish I could have thanked them or hugged them. So for the guy with an account at Starbucks, air hug.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, dude. That's awesome. That's awesome. So again, let that be a takeaway. If you have struggled with having a negative perception of police officers, whether it's because you've had a personal experience or a handful of personal experiences that weren't what you wanted or were unpleasant or for whatever reason negative, look for the good, find the good. Look for stories. If you do a little research, you will find stories of police officers that save people's lives or rescue kittens out of trees, but the mainstream media doesn't.
Story. I got to save a goat. So,
a goat.
Yeah, I'm running through my head all the animal stories I had. So I got called to a parking lot for, it was a baby locked in a car, and the parents were gone, right? So it's an SUV, and it had dark windows on it, and one of the windows was cracked just a little bit, and you could hear, whoever called us could hear crying inside the vehicle, and they go, there's a child in there, and there's no adults around. Well, I ended up breaking the window out. It was a goat. It was a baby goat inside.
Oh, and they can sound like people. They sound
absolutely,
like humans.
Absolutely. And but it was summertime, and these people
still didn't need to be in there. Yeah.
Oh no, it would have died if we'd left it. And that's a sad thing about Arizona. We did have a lot of heat deaths and kids left in cars and stuff like that. It was terrible. But the goat, those folks were from out of town, actually out of country, and they just didn't know any better. That's the way they did things.
Wow.
Take their livestock with them. So I ended up breaking out the window. I actually still have the scar from where my hand went through the window.
Oh wow.
And but that made national news.
Oh wow! I'll have to look that story up. If I read it or heard about it, I forgot about it. Yeah.
Well, that was a long time ago.
Yeah, and my thing is just that I know, and knock on wood, I don't need the police. Again, I live in a safe place. Mm-hmm. I pay attention when I am out. I like to get out less and less the older I get, but I pay attention. But I know I would be grateful to have a police department to call, that I would be thankful to have an officer show up for me when I need him, whether it's a serious thing or a minor thing or not. And I just think people lose sight of that when we've seen these protests and stuff and people that want to abolish the police. I just have to wonder, what do they think that's going to accomplish?
Well, look at the cities where they've done that.
Anti-police, absolutely.
Look at it.
Absolutely.
Who are you going to call?
Absolutely.
And they always do. You tell these people, they would chew me out, tell me what a piece of crap I was, and what they would do to me, and if I didn't have a badge on, blah blah blah. And I would tell them, don't ever call us. If you don't like us, don't call us.
That's fine.
And guess what? The next week they were calling us.
They need you. Absolutely.
So-and-so stole my dope. Go get him.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Really?
Yeah. So, any questions? I appreciate those of you that have posted some comments that I've been able to share. So he says regarding the roommate that has the Starbucks tab for officers. Well, he has to deal with them every day. They get there quicker now. Yeah, okay. So there could be could be something in it for them. Is it reservation territory anywhere near you?
Yes, absolutely. Cells Tohono O'odham. They used to be called Papagos, but they changed their name to Tohono O'odham. They have a huge reservation that is right on the border with Mexico, and that's where, when I was a death investigator, that's where most of the migrants would come from. Where we would go out and we were getting anywhere from 150 to 200 a year that we would go out and pick up, and it was everything from. A migrant would get, one of the illegal migrants would get picked up by Border Patrol, and they'd say, "Hey, Joe was sick and he was down the wash a ways," and they would go and find him heat stroke down there, and then we'd go pick him up.
Right.
Everything from that to, "Hey, I was sitting on my front porch and my dog walked up with a skull."
A piece of a person's
so
body.
we would go out and we would find bones and stuff like that. So we had all of that.
Oh my gosh.
That was 150 to 200, and I have no idea how many they're finding now or how many.
Wow.
But you think about it, and there's millions of people. You hear all the reports of the numbers that are coming in and how many they caught and how many got away. They have no clue. They have no clue.
So do all reservations have their do all reservations have their own law enforcement?
Yes. Yeah.
So were there ever any problems? I'm thinking of that show that, oh my gosh, what was that show with Katie Sackhoff? Where they're up in Wyoming or whatever. And from time to time, there'd be like clashes because the reservation police felt like they needed to deal with the person because they were from the reservation, but the crime occurred off of the reservation, and so they would kind of butt heads. Is that a real life thing? Is that realistic?
No. The reality is you would go to a call like a car accident on the border, and I was a city cop, and we had county sheriffs as well. And so if it would happen on the city-county border, we hoped that it was in the county, and the county hoped that it was in the city. And back in the day, I heard stories about crime scenes not crime scenes, but civil, like an accident would get pushed into one jurisdiction or another. Or they'd say, "Hey, go ahead and pull down the street there and pull in that parking lot and make the call." So most cops, they're like, "I don't want to deal with your mess, and you don't want to deal with my mess." So
how funny.
As far as butting heads, no. All the agencies, and we had university cops, we had the tribal police, we had sheriffs, we had park rangers. I mean, we had the entire gamut of law enforcement, and everybody worked together so well. I don't remember any major incidents. We would have some spats, maybe personality problems, but everybody worked together. Especially, we had some like kidnapping cases. I'm trying to think of some names here, but I can't. It's escaping me. But anyway, we would have a big case, and we would have a federal agency come in.
I was about to ask you that.
All the surrounding agencies would volunteer. We would be in a pursuit, and they would set up blocks for us.
Oh, wow.
There's a lot.
And that's how it should be.
There's a lot more cooperation than people are led to believe.
Yeah, that's how
you see in the movies. Oh, it's my jurisdiction. This is they're coming in and ruining my scene. No, it doesn't happen like that.
Okay, that's good to know. So you worked with the FBI at times?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a whole nother show, huh?
They're a bunch of kids out of college who had, like I said, when I came out of college, I had zero life
Nope.
experience.
Yeah.
I was a stupid kid. And FBI are same story, but they go into the FBI and their tactical team may serve, maybe 10 or 15 warrants a year, and like I said, we were doing 1 or 2 a day.
Yeah.
So when you get with them, there were some really high speed FBI guys, but most of them were not.
Oh, wow.
And it was cringe when the Fed, and they would come for like bank robberies. That's a federal crime, or a kidnapping, federal crime, and they would get involved in that. And for the most part, they were great. But if they did anything tactical,
no
if
clue.
they were trying to serve a warrant, it was a monkey hugging a football.
Oh, no way. And I just thought, so I posted in the chat and had a comment up. That show I was thinking of is Longmire.
Oh, okay.
I loved that show, but they do give you the impression at times that reservation police and regular police
we had such a great relationship that we would go over and they would stand. Now here's the thing: when we would get a call on the reservation, sometimes it would be 3 a.m, and we would get called out to these god awful remote locations, somewhere out in the desert where they died.
Address. Yeah.
And you're out there in the middle of, at 3 a.m, and we were unarmed. They wouldn't let us carry firearms as a death investigator. But we're out there all by ourselves, and you've got the cartel and drug runners all around you. So what the tribal police would do, they would send a guy or two out there with a long gun, and they would guard us while we were doing our stuff.
Oh, nice. So, okay.
Nothing but love and respect.
Okay, yeah, that's good
now,
to know.
Firefighters, it's a different story. No, firefighters and cops have a long history, but no, our firefighters and police department were tight.
Good. That's good to know.
We helped each other out. They would get a drunk that wanted to fight. We'd go help them out. Or we'd get a drunk that was having a medical condition, and they would come help us out. So
okay. And again, that's how it should go. Yeah.
Yeah. There's so much more cooperation than TV leads us to.
Heads. Yeah. So before I let you go, what is something you want people to know about real life police officer? Like, if there's one big takeaway, what did you maybe find yourself wishing people understood or could appreciate?
Boy, that's a huge question.
And I'm sure the list is really long, but
it's huge. Yeah. And I'm trying to pick out like major ones, but it's hard, but I would want people to look at cops like they look at a waiter at a restaurant, or at the cashier at the grocery store. They're human beings, they're people.
Yeah.
And let me finish with this. The average lifespan of a retired police officer is 5 years. They last 5 years after they retire. Now, I was on a 20-year program, so I actually retired when I stayed a little longer, but I could have retired at 42.
Okay.
So at 42, and that was pretty average for cops. You go in your 20s, you leave in your 40s, and you're dead 5 years later on average. And it was alcohol and suicide.
Oh my God.
And that's rampant.
Again, because over time, the emotional and spiritual, for lack of a better word, toll that has to take on you to see the things you see and deal with the horrors that you deal with. I just wish that's what I want people to see. That's my goal. I want people to respect and appreciate the sacrifices and the damage that it does over time. And I'm sure the police officers here in Southlake, where I'm toting us as being so crime-free, I'm sure they still have to deal with nonsense and rude people, or maybe drunk people, or,
Well, it's the worst of the worst. And when you're driving through the city, or you're walking down the street and you see that dark alley and there's some dude lurking in the back, and you turn around and walk the other way, well, the cops have to go in there and deal with that.
Yeah.
And when there's a fight with cliche, but most people run away from the
Correct.
gunshot, and the cops are running
Run to it.
toward
Yeah,
the gunshot.
absolutely.
So,
Well, and I've said before, I perceive police work, law enforcement work, to be deploying every day. You're like a military. You're deploying into a battlefield every day.
It's war, and your enemy, you have no idea
Yeah,
who your enemy
you
is,
can't
where they
identify.
are.
Yeah, till something happens.
You'll see cops parked like this when they're doing their paperwork, and that's so they can watch each other's back.
Oh, I always thought they were just visiting.
Well, that too, but they park like that.
No,
so,
yeah, logistics.
And they'll park. They'll park in the middle of a parking lot so they can see all the way around them.
Yes,
and
yes.
it's the little things. You're trained to never carry anything in your dominant hand. You never
So you're ready to shoot.
never pick a bag, so you have your gun hand always free, always.
Yeah.
And it's that you get ingrained. It gets ingrained in you that you live on the battlefield.
Yeah,
I would take my kids to the grocery store, and I'd be walking down an aisle, and somebody would walk up and go, "Hey, Officer Huesgen, how are you today?" And I had no idea who they were. And I think to myself, God, I hope I was cool with you.
Yeah, right. You know where I am. Yeah.
Yeah, and here I am with my kids.
Yeah.
At the grocery store. So the war zone is your backyard. So.
Oh my gosh. Right. That's how I see it, which is why I would never do it. I'm not cut out for it. I've never had a desire to do it. And I thank you for the years you spent doing it.
Well,
and I want people to understand that. I want them to see it. I want them to hear the stories. I want them to relate to the human that's inside the uniform, that's behind the badge, and not think that there's some sort of protection against you being harmed, sometimes physically, but for sure emotionally and psychically and spiritually harmed by what you have to do. And even if it's a good day, just always being on the tightrope of knowing that at any second, just like you said before, in a split second, something can turn from one thing to another thing, and you don't know who the bad guys are, and you don't always know what's coming at you. And I can't even watch these videos without like being tired and feeling my heart racing.
Yeah, and you do that day after day after day, 10 to 12 hours a day, maybe longer. I had call outs that lasted 3 or 4 days.
Oh, couldn't do it.
And after a while, it does. It grinds on you. It also makes you numb to everything.
Yeah, everybody loses.
Nothing excites me anymore.
Everyone loses. Yeah,
everybody loses.
Yeah.
And but I'll tell you what, in closing, there are bad cops out there. I'm not making any excuses, but the overwhelming majority are salt of the earth, just the best people. And they may not come across that like it because they're talking to you like they're talking down to you because they've got to be the alpha.
Correct. Protect themselves in the situation. Yeah.
And sometimes you have to be an a-hole to keep from getting killed.
Yep.
And just maybe cut them a little slack if you have a negative experience, and I'll tell you how to turn it around. You look them in the eye and you say, "Man, I don't like you. I don't like the way you're treating me, but thank God you're here.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you for showing up when I called.
I appreciate, you know what? Yeah, you're a jerk, but I like what you do.
Yeah.
And I think you're important." And if you say that, it'll take their breath away. So try that next time. Just go, you're I'm sorry for what I did, or I'm sorry you're a jerk, but I'll tell you what, man, thank God you're out here.
Yeah.
And that can change attitudes and change a confrontation into a much better experience.
Yeah. So. And do I need to download or buy Rainbow Six? Don't I see you always getting online?
No, that's
looking
my
for a
son.
party?
No, so we never talked about how we met. So
you can tell us that right quick. Yeah.
Oh God, I don't remember. That was so long ago. No, my son has. He's taken the Xbox away.
Okay.
So.
I'll see that pop up and think, wow, do I need to download that game so I can get in and play with you? But I don't have a whole lot of time for gaming anymore. But we'll have to plan a meetup. We'll have to do an old Geezer Gamers meetup online at least, and maybe crank out the 360s and pop the Halo 2 disc in. And
let's go to Vegas.
Yeah, heck yeah, LAN party time. Yeah. So
Oh,
it was a treat having you here today. I'm still honored that you said you would do it. And
yeah,
you were
no.
among the first people I thought of when I was putting the ideas together in my head, because I at least wanted to know I had some potential guests before I decided I was going to do the show. So it's more comfortable for me because I know you. You know, I know you already, so I'm not. It's just
Well,
comfortable for me. So
I'm honored that you asked me on. Thank you for everyone listening. I hope I wasn't too boring. I wish I could have told you some of the really good stuff, but
yeah, I might have to do a
after the
late
kids
night
go to
stream.
sleep,
Yeah,
I
I'll have to
could.
do a late night adults only live stream, and we
Yes.
can,
Yes.
yeah. Let me know. Send me a message or let me know in the chat. Are you guys be up for that? I could do a late night, like a Friday night late. We can really get into the nitty gritty, no holds barred.
Any last
Part.
questions? This is your freebie. I'll.
Yeah, I
Any
don't think
last top
so.
questions or anything? Okay.
Again, I think a lot of people are coming because they just want to experience law enforcement vicariously through what they're hearing and seeing and learning on the screen. So
Well,
tell Robin I said hi and thank her for letting me have you for a little while today.
well,
And
thank you again.
slow those kids down growing. I'm not real happy to consider
Yeah.
how old the kids are getting now. That just
know.
doesn't even. And this is me with grandkids, but I still see, your two youngest as little bitty. I mean, to me, in my mind, they're
Yeah.
still those little bitty kids, and
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time with teenagers and almost teenagers there. It's kind of scary.
Well,
But
thank
thank you
goodness.
again.
Thank goodness for the kids because they give me motivation to get up and come to work every day.
Okay, yes, that's the way
They
to
like
look
to
at it.
eat.
Yeah, they kind of have to. Yeah. Anyway, you take care. Have a good weekend. And I'll let you know if we're gonna do like a late night thing where we can really just let
We
loose
can
and you can
sit around the campfire
spit
and
it
tell
out.
stories.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because I could tell you ghost stories. I
Oh my
got plenty
gosh.
of those.
Oh yeah, we could maybe just have fun in all kinds of areas.
Well,
All right.
thank you again for
Thank
having me.
you.
It's an honor that you would reach out and ask me because I don't think I'm that interesting.
Well, it's an honor again to me that you would do it because our connection was never through law enforcement. So it was totally within the realm of possibility that you would say, that's not something I'm interested in doing. So I'm grateful. I'm thankful to have you in my life, however it is. And I'm really appreciative that you were on the show today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
All right. So another, I think, great live stream for my support law enforcement series. I hope you guys are enjoying these. And what he said there toward the end, again, that's the purpose of what I'm doing. I want you to be able to see the human inside the uniform, the human behind the badge. They're just real people. And just like real people, like he pointed out, a certain percentage of the population is not a quality human. And so, unfortunately, that's going to be wherever you go. There's not really a place where you're immune from that. Looking at the graphs and the website information we were looking at, again, you can see that all professions, all different kinds of people, all different kinds of work can have their bad apples. But like, again, when you find yourself having a bad attitude or you're in a situation where you're dealing with an officer that has a bad attitude, go ahead and tell him, I really don't appreciate your attitude or talking down to me or you being a jerk, but golly, thanks for coming. I don't want you to think I don't appreciate that you do the job you do and that you came when I needed you, because that's kind of the bottom line of why we need them and why it goes better for everybody if you can at least respect what they're doing and what they have to suffer to do it for us. So I will turn you guys loose. I'll leave the chat open for just a little bit so you can say your goodbyes. Thank you again to everyone that was here to watch live today. If you enjoyed the stream, please give it a like. I'd love for you to share it. I have another law enforcement officer. He's a current law enforcement officer in Grand Prairie, Texas, not far from South Lake. And he's going to come on and talk to us, and he'll give us some more information too about like the programs that his department does to connect and engage with citizenry and help to build and maintain a positive image. He's a great guy. I've known him since high school. And I know you're going to enjoy that show as well. So mark your calendars for next Friday at 2 p.m. Cross your fingers for little Posy that she might find her forever family at tomorrow's adoption event. I'm not holding my breath again because there just aren't a lot of applications coming in for people looking to add dogs to their homes. And I'm so glad we have her. Richard already made the comment today, y'all. If she stays here much longer, I'm just going to want to keep her. That we can't do that. I don't think we can swing 4 dogs. I mean, I know we could, like I could do it, but with our boarding and all the poop I'm already picking up, again, run it back to the beginning of the stream. I opened the show today with a song addressing the poop issue here, because there sure is a lot of dog poop. I mean, there's other poop, but because the dogs are right here in the backyard and they get to go out as often as they like. That's what it means. But I love, let me know, Jerry, if you want me to send you the link for the application. That's the first thing that has to happen with the organization is you got to have an application on file. Even if you're not interested in her, or you just want to have it on file in case for some reason you're looking for a pup to add to the family. Oh, look, my Amber Alert thing is going off on my phone. 2 of them. Guess who's helping with that? Police officers. Okay? So, I love you guys. I thank you every time you show up. You know it's a gift to me and a blessing to me. I thank you. I appreciate you. If you're watching again and you haven't subscribed to the channel, please help me grow my little YouTube family here by subscribing to the channel. I'm really close to my next milestone for subscriber counts. So it'll just take a handful of people to help me get there. I'll see you tomorrow evening, 7 p.m. for my next reaction video. We'll have live chat going on during that. And there's some buckle up your seatbelt stuff for sure that we're going to watch together. And then other than that, check out Trumpet of the Swan, those uploads that are going up once a week as I make my way through that book. I think I have the next children's book ready that I want to do. But if there's a book that you enjoy or you've heard of, if I can read that for you, we'll just make that kind of a regular thing, because I love reading. It's very therapeutic for me. This book has just really been sweet because, again, it takes me back to positive things from my past and my childhood and my kids' childhoods. And so it's all good. But again, I love you. I appreciate you. I thank you for being here. I thank you for all you do for me, for the channel, supporting me beyond just being a content creator on YouTube. Check out the channels that we shared stats for earlier in the show. For sure, go check out Butler Family Farm, because Jerry came and did a great thing for me to come and check my well when he paid us a visit. And that was a blessing to me as well. So be safe, be happy, be well, be blessed. I will see you in my next video, and have a wonderful weekend. Bye, guys.